Hi everyone, welcome back to MacBreak Studio Live, and this is Alex, and we've got a great night planned. We started just a little bit late, but I think we'll catch up. So anyway, we've got a couple things. We got Autodesk here, and we have Adobe here to show some pieces. We'll see some Smoke. We'll see the Adobe pipeline. And we're also going to have Mark Spencer, of course, back talking about some Final Cut stuff at the end. So there's a lot of things here. And one of the things that I want to make sure that you're clear of is that we have a new way for you to ask questions. So you can still chat on the IRC. But if you look at the stream on our site, you'll actually see a place where you can ask questions here. That's going to take you to the feedback loop that we've created. This is a big test. It was finished 2 hours ago. so we've had guys working on it pretty hard. So if you look here at the screen, what you're going to see here is this is what you'll see when you as soon as you log into it. Now what this is kind of, think about it kind of as a dig, but just for the questions for this show. So what you can do here is you can go to sign in. And this is going to be signing in if you've already signed in, which you probably haven't. So, so what you want to do here is go to New User. And so if you go to the New User here, and you see here, and I can say my name is Alex Lindsay. My email is alex at, let's see, me.com. I can't type anymore. Make up a URL. It has to have some numbers, and it also has to be more than 8 characters. Have some numbers, and you have to remember what you just typed, because it's asking for a confirm. And then you confirm it, and it will log you in then to the. Let's see this. Hopefully I got this right. There we go. So now what's happening here is that you're logged in and you'll see these votes. So you can look at recent ideas. These are the ones that people have put up. There's only one up there right now. That was just a test to make sure that there was something in there. So what you can do now, though, is if you want to add a new question, you simply say, I want to. Now, if you want to vote on this, you think this is a good idea, we should answer that question. Simply just click this little up arrow. If you don't like the idea, you can just simply click the down arrow. I'll let you guys decide. I've already put in a couple votes because I was testing, so I'll even it out by pushing the down arrow. And so now you can see. Now you can't vote again, so make sure you know what you want to vote on, because you can't change your mind. Now, if you want to post an idea, we can put the title in and say Adobe Resources, and then I can say where. And you can make these as long as you want, but make sure that people can read them, because people are going to vote on them. Where can I find
You really can't type, can you?
No, I can't. More about Adobe products. Okay, so we have it there. Where can I find out more about Adobe? And then you post it. Now it's automatically going to vote you, because it's going to assume that since you wrote it, you want to give it an up arrow. So now you have an up arrow and down arrow. So that's how that works. If you can leave comments. You can also you can ask ask questions. You can ask the questions. You can vote on other people's questions. Try to look through the questions and make sure that they are that someone hasn't already asked them. And then what I'm going to be looking at is I'm going to be actually looking at the I'm going to be looking at this here and kind of refreshing and checking this out. And I'm going to try to answer some of the top questions that you have ongoingly through the show. So, that's kind of the key to the operation. This is a big test, and we're hoping that you guys enjoy it. We've done it on a couple other things that we thought that we think turned out pretty well. So get ready for that. As you're watching, ask some questions. You can of course chat in the IRC, and some of that stuff. If this turns out to not work as smoothly as we thought, then we can kind of play with that. So anyway. That's the feedback loop. That's how you get back to us while we're on the show. We're experimenting with it. This is the first time we've ever done it. So I think it's the first podcast ever to have a feedback dig system.
There you go.
It's not really dig. It's but it's a voting structure. So anyway, hopefully you guys enjoy that. And right now, what we're going to do is start talking about Autodesk. I'm gonna hand this back to Dean.
You hand that back to me. I've got
Autodesk.
this.
Oh, you've got that. You don't.
I can use both. I'm very
right?
flexible in that sense.
And what we're going to talk about today, of course, is well, the first thing we're going to talk about today is Smoke. So Where does Smoke fit into the pipeline?
Everywhere.
Everywhere.
It depends on your facility. If you're a Final Cut facility, if you're Adobe, Premiere, if you're avid media composer, Smoke can fit in as a finishing tool. We like to think of it as an all-in-one finishing solution.
Right.
That's the marketing thing, right? But there's a reason for that, because it really does have all the tools you need to finish a project.
Right.
You may not necessarily want to start your project there. I mean, if you want to do the old offline, online type workflow,
right.
That's probably ideal.
Right.
It lets the creative editor be creative. It lets the finishing editor.
It's a bit heavier than the average editor might want to jump into, as far as the learning curve and everything else. Now, because it is something that you could if you wanted to. And I've talked to quite a few Smoke artists,
right?
And a lot of them say, "Oh, I would never use an editor. I would just edit everything. I just edit everything in Smoke." And so a lot of folks are already, if you already know how to use Smoke, you can edit in it. But if you are an editor, Smoke may not be the next step for you. You might want to have more of a specialist to handle it.
Well, you don't want to spend all your time relearning what you already know, right?
Right.
I mean, if you know how to edit and you're comfortable with what you're working on, why switch?
Right.
But if you want to move to the next level and add a little more flair to that, offline or the online.
Well, and there's a lot of heavy tools in there that do a lot of really powerful things. We've been sitting. We have been in training. A group of us have been in Smoke training for the last couple of days, and there's just a couple. Some of the tools are like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I'm glad they have that. I'm glad they have that. And then there's like, oh, that's pretty new.
But those are the fun ones.
Well, those are. But that's what makes it worth the money, because it's an expensive. It's an expensive piece from a Mac perspective. It's very inexpensive from the high-end production.
Well, yeah, I mean, gosh, I came from the linear world where I paid, $300,000 for a switcher and a DVE that was going to cost $150.
Right.
You're at $2 million real quick. So
no, this is what's changed.
Yeah,
is that from a Mac perspective, this is something new. It's more than what we're used to paying. But from big finishing houses and production, I talk to some of them and they say, I don't even know. Smoke is so inexpensive. I'm not sure if it's really going to work. But that's it's two very different views. Of
perceived value thing.
The perceived value thing, where these people are all used to spending $250,000 or $100,000 on their finishing tools, and $15,000. They're like, well, what could that do? And the answer is a lot. So we're going to take a little look at what are you going to show us today?
Well, since we already talked about the timeline, I'm not really going to get into the editing and stuff, but I do want to show you how some of the effects work within the timeline. For example, here I have a clip that actually I just shot with my home camera, and obviously I'm a lousy photographer.
One of the things you can do, of course, is that you can bring in, it's not like you have to have special resources or frame sequences or anything else. You can bring in a lot of different video formats.
Absolutely. I mean, we try to keep it as flexible as possible. I mean, of course, every day something new is happening, so keeping up with that is difficult. But yeah, I mean, this is just something I shot, and obviously I handheld it, and I had auto iris on, right?
Yeah.
So let's assume I want to fix that sky up here.
Okay.
And you're going to forgive me, folks, because my vision is poor. But basically, I just want to park kind of right in here where that move starts to happen. The color's starting to change a little bit.
Yep.
And I'm going to go back to my timeline here. Let's just drop this down in here. Bring it up into the timeline. Whoops, I brought the wrong one up here. Let me bring back. Let's go back here. Sorry about that. Let's go back to here. Now I want to bring this up. Okay, so I've got that parked on that. I'm just going to cut that clip, and then I'm going to drag it out to the desktop because I just want one frame of that. So I'm just going to repeat that one frame over here. I can throw that away. We'll add another layer to this, and then I'm just going to take this. I'll mark an in and an out down here. Oops, mark the in and out right here, and then I'm going to drop that into my timeline. So now basically I took that one frame, stretched it out, and I put it over the top of this movement down here.
Okay.
Okay, it's fairly simple at that point. Now what I'm going to do, these are all soft effects over here. These are effects that we can do within the timeline.
Right.
We have normal effects modules up here, which are the heavier tools that you were talking about earlier. But for right now, I'm just going to add an axis effect to this clip, and we'll go into the editor on there.
What's an axis effect?
Well, these are soft effects.
Right.
These are effects that I can apply to elements in the timeline.
Okay.
So as opposed to coming out to a module where I can composite it and then put it back in my timeline.
So by a soft effect, what you mean is that it's, you know, from a Mac user's perspective, a soft effect means that you're not you're not processing it. This is being processed on the fly. It's like adding a filter to a clip that you could turn on and off and activate and deactivate.
All of these are available. So I mean, and the axis is kind of a complicated effect because you have DVE type functions where you can do X, Y, Z rotation, movement, positioning, as well as keying and a lot of tools inside here. So if I go into the editor on here, what I'm going to do is take this clip, move the beginning of it, and we have several surfaces available inside our inside the axis and action, which is the compositing tool.
Right.
This is set for flat. We have bilinear, bicubic, extended bicubics. I really don't have time to go into all of those.
Absolutely.
But I'm going to go into bilinear. As soon as I do, see how it brings up another tool set here.
Right.
This is a 4-point tracker, so I can do corner pinning.
Right.
So rather than just track this vertically and horizontally, I want to get the
perspective change.
There's going to be keystoning and stuff taking place, so I need to take care of that. So if I go into stabilizer.
And one of the things that's very interesting about the Smoke that you just notice as you start to go through it is it's very modal in the fact that what you see, you see the tools that you need as you're working. So in a lot of applications, you see all the tools, and they're available to you, and some people like that. And this one has so many settings, but all those settings are up on the surface, and every time you click something new, you get relevant this is your tools. They're all the relevant things that you need to work on today. I mean, I have noticed that there's a change in now that I'm starting to get used to it, it allows you to really focus on whatever you're working on at that moment.
Exactly. I mean, the initial thought when you get into it is that, gosh, this is not the same as everything else. I don't go to the file, drop
Well, it's
down,
really hard. It's been hard for me as I started to get started. It's like, I don't know how to import a file,
And it is,
Right.
but once you get that concept,
Yeah.
you just start blazing through stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is easy to move fast. So like this, since I was in a bilinear surface, it knows I want to do a 4-point track.
Right.
So it just gives me 4 trackers right away. And I'm going to try to see this from here, but we'll position this tracker over here. And this is one of the few places in Smoke where there is a rule. Okay. We were talking earlier today about Smoke gives you a lot of flexibility on how you can do different things.
But you got to do these in order.
These have to be in order.
Because otherwise
top to bottom, left to right.
it'll turn it inside out.
Right. So what we need to do here is take those, put those trackers in here. I'm going to gang all of them together, and we'll just scale these up a little bit. I want to track a larger area. I don't want to go too big, or it slows way down, and it's not always that necessary.
And the two things that we're looking for people who haven't done tracking before, you have one's a search area, right? And the other one is the outer one is the search area, and the inner one is the tracking pattern. So it says I'm going to look for this inside of this area.
Right. So if you get something with radical movement, you have to make that search area a lot bigger.
But if you make it too big, I could find something else that looks like it, it also slows it down.
Well, and you have to look. We have this fixed button down here, so it's a fixed reference. It's always going to look for something exactly like it saw in that first frame. And it's going to look, on frame 20, it's going to look for what it saw in frame 1.
Right.
If you turn fixed off, it's going to look at the previous frame. Right. So it allows for stuff to come at you, get bigger, that kind of thing. Okay, so let's take that. I've got those. I'm going to save those right now. So let's just save this as Alex. I think I spelled something there. We'll call that Alex. And there's a reason for doing that. So let's go ahead and analyze this. Let's go ahead and track those. Oops. Let me return out of here, because what I did was I tracked my offsets. So let me just redo that, okay? Kind of couldn't see from
this
here.
is the challenge here when people are.
It's a challenge when you can't see.
And the other thing is that we're always experimenting. The monitor's a little small this time, and next time you come, it'll be
much bigger.
Much bigger.
My eyes will be better.
I don't think we're going to be able to improve that. Not from here. That's all I'm saying. And
I was hoping for the makeup myself. Something to improve that.
Well, the makeup room isn't done yet. That's the problem.
I see.
It's still under construction.
Okay, so let's go ahead and we'll gang those all together again. I'll scale that up. And I'll scale this one up. And let's save them. Let's go here. And I'll save it with Alex.
And you're saving the trackers.
I'm saving those points, and there's a real reason I'm doing that, and I'll show you here in a second. So let's go ahead and analyze those. So it'll go through, it'll track those 4 points, and I can show you a little more impressive track here in a little bit. Okay, so once I've got those, when I return out, it does exactly what we thought it would do, which is corner pin those in. Actually, it's not, because I did my offsets first.
Right.
So, so it's not as dramatic what I did here. It actually worked right away. So once that tracks those 4 points in there,
Right.
I just want to mask that off. So I can do that by going into our keyer. And Smoke has quite an impressive array of keyers. I mean, basically we have about 8 keyers available to you.
Right.
9 if you want to count the modular keyer, which is just an area where you can combine all of the keyers together. But let's just go in here and we'll just add a G masks to cut this off. So I just have a garbage mask. Let me zoom out here a bit. And we'll just draw something around here and cut this area out. There's several ways of doing it. You can do a spline like that. You can just start drawing across here if you want to. And obviously from here I can't get too precise. I want to cut a real sharp edge around here.
Right.
But I'm having trouble seeing the building from here. So we'll go ahead and cut that. If we look at our mat, and I do this different than a lot of people, I like to set it this way and then just take the outside and adjust it. That way I see what's happening.
Right.
Some people will go to illuminance and do that.
Right.
But from here I can adjust my offsets so I can soften it and do something like that. Or I can use my advanced gradients, which allows me to go over here. Let's zoom into this a little bit so the impaired can see. So let's do this. Let's just take all of those points right here. And I'm going to just scale them. So again, tons of tools here available to you. Go to scale, and we'll just take that, do something like this. We'll just.
So you're tightening those. So you're leaving everything else soft because you just want that as a soft selection.
Yeah, because I want to cut that edge pretty tight over here. Over
Right.
on this side, I want to loosen it up a bit. So let's just go here. And I can do this on a per vector basis, so
Right.
I can really cut that pretty accurately.
Right.
So once I've done that, let's go back to our result right here. So now we've got this happening, right? When I return out, this is my composite with that mixed in over the top. So, you know, and this was in the timeline. If you wanted to do something a little more extensive, you could go into the timeline and do it, or into the action.
Right.
Which is the advanced composite, and you can just sit here and layer and layer and layer.
Right.
So this is processing. It's going to take it about 20 seconds.
So and that's just a quick way to do, you know, just start off, building a fix.
Yeah.
You know, for something.
It's very simple.
Right.
You know, so, and then Smoke also allows you to do some pretty extensive color correction.
Yeah.
Let me add another layer here. Let's just do something like this. And I tend to work this way. I'll hard commit this. So basically I've got my uncommitted layers down here. I can modify those effects. This is rendered.
Right.
Okay, so I have that clip that's all set. A couple ways you can go about it. Again, I can add this soft effect here. I could add the color corrector directly to it, or I can add a layer. Let's just go up here, and I can add effects to blank areas in my
And that's
timeline.
kind of like almost like if someone was used to like Photoshop or whatever, it's kind of like an adjustment layer, or same thing with After Effects. You have an
Right.
adjustment layer where you're able to add filters and corrections to everything below it.
Yes. And it's kind of nice because you can copy it, paste it, move it around, trim it. So let's just add a color corrector to this. And when I do these soft effects, you notice how this changes up here? So it gives me basic tools where I can kind of do RGB, gain, gamma, that kind of adjustments up here.
Right.
Or you go into the editor and you have a more extensive tool set.
Right.
This is our standard color corrector. I'm going to use the color warper for this. And you got to play with the color warper a little earlier today.
Very powerful.
Yeah, so what I want to do here is we'll just drop the blacks back a little bit. And it's always hard to tell on this monitor. I'm not complaining about your monitor, Alex. Well, I kind of am.
You know, you've been complaining about it the whole time. I just wanted to point that out.
Tracking.
It's been 14 comments about my monitor. We'll have a new monitor the next time you come,
okay.
I promise.
That's okay. So anyway, I'm just going to kind of do an overall black and white balance on their adjustment. But maybe I want to bring out the trees a little more, do something like that. So we can do what's called a selective color correction. So in here I can pick a custom color, and I'll just go over here and we'll just kind of drag across those trees, get something like that. And basically that's pulling a matte.
And again, the one thing that for people to notice is again and again and again, every time you make that selection or you say, I'm going to use this tool, one of the things that at first I thought was a little disorienting and now I'm kind of getting attached to
It's all right
is that everything else disappears. Well, like you say, okay, I want to select something and everything other than what I'm working on disappears, and I'm looking at just what I need to look at.
Yeah, that's so if you're working with something big like this, you can see everything.
Right.
And
I love this overlay view, by the way. 'Cause
Yeah.
it's just sitting right over top of the image, because you can
Exactly.
really get in there and you still have all the pieces that you need.
So and that's exactly the purpose. You can kind of, the tools don't get in the way. So there's, I kind of cranked that green out. So let me undo that. So let's just say we want to kick it a little bit. We don't want to get too carried away.
Mm-hmm.
And so that just affected the green areas. Now you can see it kind of affected my walkway here, right?
Right.
So that's because it's a key. It's actually pulling a mat there. I can plot that area right here and see how that shows up on this little keyer thing down here.
And this is what they call what's called the diamond keyer.
Diamond
right?
keyer, yeah. Diamonds are forever. So let's just take that, pull it back here, and we can clean that up. So now I've got that area taken care of. So I just have the trees affected. Maybe we want to affect the sky, so I can add another selective. Let's pick a custom color. We'll go into this like that. I'll zoom in here.
And this is why a lot of people are using this for finishing, is because you really have this fast way to really fine-tune what your image is. I mean, you can do a lot of this stuff in a lot of applications, but this is really, you can see that there's just a lot of depth to the
and if you want to, I mean, if you're really into grading and you want to have the more
Little
tactile
controllers and
interface,
all those
Avid
stuff.
has a Euphonics tablet that we work with.
Right.
It's fine. Actually, it's really nice. So now I've got that kind of picked out. I'm going to show you the mat on this a little bit, because you can see how dithered.
Yep.
This is obviously a home camera, right?
Yeah.
So
Look at those macro blocks.
you love them.
Yeah.
This is the best. So I can do the same type of thing here. I can plot that, make sure that it's not keyed, it's cleaned up a bit, something like that. And let's zoom out here. And I can smooth that. So let's take that and we'll make a Gaussian blur on it, and we'll just soften that up so the clouds don't get too disrupted.
Chunky.
Yeah. Go back, look at our result, and let's just take that and maybe boost the blue up a little bit. We'll drop the black in that blue, so black and blue. So you get something like that. So I mean, it's pretty easy to go in and do little things like that in the timeline.
That's great.
And again, that has to render out, and that's going to take probably 25 seconds.
Yeah. But while you're working on it, it's all just you're just kind of working through it.
Exactly, and like we were talking today, you can get a background render blade if you want to, and
Right.
you want to find a way to spend a little more money. We'll accommodate.
Well,
actually, that part is free.
Mm-hmm. The one having one background blade that you can have, so you can have right now
Not
it's
the
only,
blade itself, but
not
the
blade
software.
itself. You guys don't supply that?
I know.
But having that background process available really lets you then, you could have all that stuff. You can say, okay, I want to do that, and I can keep on working, and just have something that you keep on sending.
Yeah, where I said render, and it won't show up here, where I said process, there's a way to do a burn process, so you can go back here and burn.
Right.
Okay, so then it'll process.
One of the things that we were talking about today, that our request, is that
no, it's a good idea.
is that if we used an iMac as a monitor for a Mac Pro, theoretically we could burn to the well, it doesn't work yet today, but it'd be really cool if we could burn to the iMac, so you could be rendering to your monitor.
Rendering to your monitor. That's a good idea. Well, I think one of the guys actually submitted that as a request. So.
And we've got a couple questions here. These are the first ones popping up on our new little question board. We're very excited.
Did they get a prize?
We might just wait. So can you tell us about your cool pen and notepad? So this is someone really new to this stuff. This is a Wacom tablet. And really, this is the preferred way to work inside of Smoke.
You know, when I started, I hated it. When
Oh,
I
really?
first I said, I don't need that thing. But then you start drawing splines, you start painting out stuff, and pretty soon you're going, I hate going back and forth.
And do any of these work with Smoke? So there's, I mean, as far as the Wacom tablets, so you have, because we have the Bamboo, you have the Intuos, Cintiq. Do these all work with it?
I haven't tried it.
Okay.
You know, all of the Intuos do. It's just a driver thing. I don't see why they wouldn't work.
Right. Because the Bamboo ones are $100, you know, and it's definitely worth trying. I have, I think I have one of each. So I have,
I
but
had that little one for a while, and it worked, you know. So
yeah, and because this isn't, but this is pressure sensitive, but it's not like you're drawing.
No.
You know, you're not. You know, so you the sensitivity of the Bamboo would probably be enough, 128 levels or 256 levels.
Yeah, I mean, you can get into the brush strokes, but it doesn't.
Yeah.
it'll still get the job done.
No, absolutely. So anyway, that's a Wacom tablet. That was one of the questions that we had here. What is the other question that we have coming up here is what is the best platform and platform resources to have to best leverage Smoke? So I think that's what
bigger is better.
Bigger is better.
It is.
It is. I think that the machine that we're running it on that has a lot of other things going on it, but it's a 16-core Mac Pro with I think 10 gigs of RAM and a 4800 card. But now the 4800 card is almost old at this point.
Yeah, I've got the 4000 in mind, so.
Which is
actually newer.
Yeah, it's newer, but a lower number. I don't understand. Yeah,
so when they get to 1, it's going to be perfect.
Exactly. That's how far away they are from the end. Yeah. So and a lot of these newer, a lot of the newer graphics cards are now NVIDIA is preferable to.
Well, we can work with most of the graphics cards. We tend to leverage the NVIDIA a little bit better. I mean, you'll see a performance difference, but you can use pretty much any graphics.
My experience, we have a GPU accelerated application, conduit, and what we found, the way that NVIDIA chunks the data is actually a lot easier to deal with from a high-end production process as opposed to games and everything else. So the ATI cards tend to work really well with games, and they're really fast and high quality. We just find that the way that NVIDIA approaches the buckets of data oftentimes works better for us.
So that's one component.
Fast drives.
Fast drives.
Now what we've done with this is we've rated 3 drives together.
Yeah.
So we just put them in, use the software RAID, we're getting about 300 megabytes a second.
Yeah.
And that's not even that fast from a Smoke perspective. I told you, because usually I do that in kind of a bragging sort of way, like we have an internal drive that runs at 300 megs a second, and I get this email back from Dean going, well, that might work.
Well, it depends. It depends on what you're doing, because I don't want to sit here and say you have to go out and buy a $15,000 RAID. That's not the case. I mean, there are other solutions out there a lot cheaper. If you're doing standard def, you're doing HD, you can get by with 300 megabits a second.
Right.
So I mean.
But you do have to think about that. You're not going to just run this on your internal drive.
No, if you're doing stereo 10-bit, 4K,
Right.
You want a screaming throughput, and so you need a big pipe going through there.
Right.
So I mean, for those we're using like a Xyratech 6500, and we're getting what 1.2 gig out of it.
Now, and speaking of that kind of speed, do you see the advent of Thunderbolt and all these other things as being exciting for the direction that things are going?
Yeah, I want to see what happens.
Yeah.
I mean, the possibilities are kind of way out there. I mean, laptop now.
I mean, that's the whole thing. Is like you can open Smoke on a 17-inch.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got it.
You can open Smoke on a 17.
You can do no. I mean,
you can do basic
standard def. You can do and there again, it depends on what you've got for storage, and you don't want to load up your system drive and get that out of system space message.
But we've been really waiting for that, because that's one of the things we want to get a 17-inch for, is actually getting a 17-inch, put Smoke on it, put a Thunderbolt connection on it, and then get one of these 700 megabyte per second RAIDs and work through it.
No, we're anxious to take a look at that. So
we've got time for one more little example, if you want to show folks.
Let's see. I got it. Actually, I like this little thing here with the nose.
Okay.
You want to see the key?
No, the nose is good.
The nose is good. You
I
like that?
The nose.
Okay. I just like that from a tracking standpoint. So I'm going to just drop that down in the timeline. Let's bring that up here like this. And it's this clip here. This is just a spot about people who have rather large noses for picking out just that perfect wine, So I'm just going to copy this clip up on top of itself. Let me zoom in here a bit. And what I want to do is add an axis effect to it. And this gets us into that same thing we were kind of doing before, where we were color correcting.
Right.
Except we'll just go here and let's go into the key here. Let's do this. Add a G mask. Let me zoom in here so I can see that wonderful nose. We'll add some geometry. So again, I'm just going to kind of trace around here, trying to be fast and within reason accurate. So let's do that. Now again, I'm not going to overly tweak it here. I got to get it fairly close so it doesn't look too bad. Okay, so we're just going to take something like that. And what I want to do is use that to cut his nose out.
Right.
And I'm going to do the same thing we did before. Instead of using an offset, I'm going to use advanced gradients. And we'll just get a harder clip somewhere around that area there. Let me zoom in a bit. Let's just switch this over to scale. Tighten these up. I'll leave a little softness there. And then again, you can go in here
and these you're going to open up again because you want it to blend, or are you going to pull these in? Okay.
Open these.
Okay.
Maybe blend it out in here.
Mm-hmm.
Oops, sorry. So we'll get something like that. All right, so then we'll do the same thing I did before. So now you've got basically a mat that looks like this, right?
Right.
Let me zoom, pull it down here. Okay, so we've got that edge cut. I guess I kind of messed up there. So let me go back and look at our result, our front, and let's clean that up here. Let's move this one down. Let's just take that, move it down here like that. Okay, so now the problem we have is this is moving video, right? So let's go into our stabilizer, do the same type of thing. We'll find a place to track, and his nose is kind of right there. So let's go ahead and analyze that. So it's pretty amazing. It does lock in on just the pores of his nose.
Right.
So
and that's something that usually is a problem because there's not a lot of specific data to grab onto.
Right.
How many trackers can you add? How many points can you track?
I don't know.
A lot.
I've never run into.
But there's no limit. It's not
No.
like 6 or 8 or whatever. You could have all of those little points being driven by trackers if you wanted to.
Yeah, well, as a matter of fact, see how it drifts off over in here?
Right.
So the only way to fix that would probably be to take something like this. And once I do that, I'm going to go over here, go into this tracker here. So I'll add a tracker
It
for
took
every point.
every vertex there,
Sure, we'll
and
just
automatically turned them into trackers.
Yep. We'll grab all of those. I'm going to gang them together. Let's just scale them up a bit, something like that. And we'll go ahead and analyze that. So let's just do this.
It's fast.
So now when I return back, I've got this
Wow.
mask that articulates with his face. Okay.
That's cool.
So what's that allow me to do now? I'm back on my layers here. So if I want to take and move his nose around.
And that's going to move with it because that's still stretching, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
And this is where I get into different surfaces. So now I'm going to get into what's called the extended bicubic. So this allows me to subdivide it. So I can divide this out as far as I want to.
Right.
This is good enough for right now. But what I want to do is I've got it set on auto keyframing. I'm just going to set a keyframe on these 2 points right here. Let's move up right when that grape comes in. Let's just do something like this. And then let's give his nose a little character. Oops. Ooh, he's getting a little stuck up on that one. So, yeah, let's just go back here and we'll just kind of bring him back in here. So now I've got that animating. That has to render out, but if we process it.
That's great.
So it allows you to get, it opens up the
and
whole
a
world.
lot of times people think about that I need to do if I want to do that kind of thing, I got to build a 3D nose and I got to do a 3D track and I got to get it all to kind of work there. But that's something that's like bam, 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 bam. Now the problem is there's a lot of people out there going, oh, I didn't want my client to see that because they didn't realize it was done so quickly. But that's what people. So in the bays that have flames and smoke and so on and so forth. That's what people are paying for. Like when you wonder, like, why am I paying so much? It's because very quickly you can grab do a couple of these effects.
Well, you can. I mean, you can either pay a lot or you can try to put a dollar value on your time.
Right.
So
absolutely.
I'm not sitting here. I am rendering. I'm processing.
But when the computer's working
fast.
and I'm not working, then that doesn't. To me, that's only like 1/10.
Exactly.
Because I can be doing something else, I can be working on another computer, I can go have a coffee, I can do whatever else I want to do, and I think that a lot of that's one of the things that you always have to keep in mind. It's me sitting there working or not.
Right.
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 A couple other questions we had here. One is, what is the demand for smoke editors today? Are there a lot of people out there looking for smoke editors?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean that's the that's the hardest thing we have, or that's the most difficult thing for us to supply is trained editors. That's what we're
working on. That's what we're working on. Yeah, and limitations of smoke. Every app has a limitation. Where does smoke choke, or what does it? What do you have to think about in terms of pushing too far, or is the limitation more on the platform side? So what do you see as limitations there? Limitations.
If you're using it strictly as an editorial product, when we store stuff locally or within the managed media, it's full RGB 444. So it's big files. So you're not going to have 5, 10, 12 hours worth of footage sitting out there.
It's not really designed to do a documentary on.
It's not. But
a commercial.
You could. I mean, you could have attached storage and import it as QuickTimes and link to it. So we have all kinds of ways of getting around that. But you kind of have to think about storage. Layers, I mean, when it starts getting too slow for you to deal with.
I mean, and that's any computer to some degree is going to have that, but because it's storing a lot of that stuff in an uncompressed format or a very low compressed format, it will start to tap out probably a little bit faster than something that's running Apple ProRes natively.
And again, it's that pipe. It's you can only move stuff so fast.
Yeah, right. That's the hardware pipe issue.
Right.
Let me see if I've got any other. If you've got any other questions for Dean, this is speak now or forever hold your peace. And someone, and Lynn, who's watching. Lynn is the
Lepage?
Yeah. So
Lynn.
Lynn says the bamboo tablets do work with Smoke, and she uses one. Well, so there's a question that came from online, bounced off of here, and then was answered online. So yeah, Lynn's been with us the last 2 days, teaching us, doing a great job. She's learning a lot. Yeah. So let's see here. I think those are. I'm going to do a real quick refresh. By the way, if you want to ask any questions. Of course, if you go to pixelcore.live, you'll see a little link, and then you can log in, and you can ask questions, and and you can vote them up and down if you like. And so I think we have answered all the questions that we got. So and this is, if you want, one of the questions that I put in that has been voted up a couple times, I have to say, is where can we get more resources about Smoke? So here's a screen here. Of course, you can get it at autodesk.com/smoke for Mac.
Yes.
And you got tons of stuff there, product info. Now you can get a 30-day trial, and that's at autodesk.com/smoke-trial, and it's fully operational, right? I mean, it's 30 days limited.
It's
but otherwise you can make it. You can do anything, and then
the next one that's
the student one. If you are a student and you don't have Smoke on your machine, or pretty much any of the Autodesk machine, you're crazy. That's all I got to say, is because this is the best deal around as far as learning and figuring out whether this is going to work for you, whether you're studying this in school or not. I wish more companies would really be this aggressive. Students.autodesk.com. If you have to be at a educational facility to do that. But if you are, you can download pretty much the entire Autodesk library for 36 months.
Yeah,
so Smoke is one of those things, and you can download it for free. And now it's educational only license. You can't use this for production, but for 3 years, while you're in school, you could have access to all the tools.
Yeah.
So it's definitely worth checking.
Yeah,
out.
it's definitely good. And the Smoke for Mac page is kind of new too. That's kind of interesting. I mean.
I find it, it's been fascinating how especially this is MacBreak Studio, of how many applications are moving from, that Autodesk has been moving to the Mac platform. Because we used to think that once they moved to Autodesk, a long time ago, if a company got bought by Autodesk, we were like, well, the Mac version is not going to be around much longer. And now it's almost the opposite.
Well, I mean, especially on the Smoke side of things, there was a 64-bit issue that we had to wait for. I mean, we've been 64-bit for quite a while, and finally the OS caught up. So it made it possible.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's great. So thank you so much, Dean.
You're welcome.
And we're going to have you back.
Good.
We'll have you come back. We'll have you show more fun stuff. And now what we're going to do is we're going to switch out to we are moving to Adobe. We got Al coming out. So are you ready? So we're going to go ahead and swap. Thanks again, Dean.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And I'll do you want this?
No, I'll see you. I know
where
you live.
We will talk more very soon.
All right.
And so we're going to be swapping out. Now, once again, if you are that just got popped about the horizon of Smoke, but I don't know if Dean's allowed to really talk about that anyway. So the if you want to ask questions, remember here. I'm going to quit this here. Let's see here. Interface there for a second. So if you want to ask questions here, you can log in, create your login, and then be able to, and then you'll be able to kind of work through all that. Here you go. So, we have a sound problem. Are you just hearing a swishing, Carolyn?
They're setting things up.
My guess is that we didn't turn one off before we turned the other one on, but I think we're okay now. Was that what happened?
Someone turned off and so 2 mics went off, and we had to mute it real quick.
Oh, both mics went off. Yeah, that's a bad thing. Sorry about that. So sorry, guys. So anyway, so what we have here is you can ask questions. So just as we're working, go ahead and post the questions. Of course, you can talk on the forums, and people are starting to use it. We're pretty excited about it. So I'm going to go ahead and hand this off to you. And Carolyn, go ahead and you guys, you can cut back to me if you'd like. There we go. Carolyn, is there any other comments that are going by? Are people getting into the question area well enough, or how's that going? Mm-hmm. Okay. Just hit cancel. Oh, you can do that. Any of that's fine. That's just the monitor. Sorry, we were looking at something on the computer. We're just getting set up. So people want to have so some of the feedback we're getting right now are people would like to see the everything on one page. This is muted. I'm just going to unmute you here. And so everybody would like to see some of this on one page. We're trying to figure that out. We're trying to figure out standard screen sizes, the best screen sizes for a lot of this stuff. So anyway, so we're going to keep on working on this. This is a bit of an experiment for us. So we thank everyone for hanging in there as we keep on adding more pieces. We have added lights. We've got more lights than we had last time. And what that really does, it's actually not, it hasn't made us any brighter. The big thing is that it has allowed us to make the background blacker. Before you could see it, and now you can't. And so by increasing this and allowing us to, this is kind of a little behind, inside baseball. When you increase the exposure of the foreground, it allows us to close the aperture down on the computers, on the cameras, and that makes the background get darker. So anyway, so that's kind of, and we'll keep on tweaking it. We're definitely open to your suggestions. You can put them into the idea area here, even if they're not questions for this. If there's things that you like or don't like, we're going to be keeping track of those. So we're definitely interested in hearing your feedback, and we're going to have kind of a more permanent one of these that you can actually leave stuff on ongoingly as we post it. Go ahead, Carolyn. Right. Sure. So if you're trying to look at stuff, popular ideas is what I'm looking at primarily, so that I can decide what question to answer. Right now, we're answering most of the questions because there's not a ton of them yet. Recent ideas is a great one to just leave planted, in this idea platform, because that is going to show you what's posting new, and that'll change a lot. And you can also hit refresh. Now, the page will refresh every 60 seconds. So you're able to kind of make all of that work as well. So there's a bunch of different ways, but I would leave it on recent ideas. I think that's the probably the best one for you to take a look at. So I'm sorry, I would leave it on recent, and then popular will tell you how popular given ones are. I'm looking at popular. So I'm looking at the popular one to pick the next questions, because you want to vote on questions as well. So not only do you want to ask the questions, but vote them up, vote them down, so on and so forth. But recent questions, if you're a viewer, is probably the best one, because you'll see the newest questions, and as those pop up, get in the habit of just saying, yeah, I want to hear that, or no, I don't. Just start voting on them. Adding those votes, and just start putting that stuff in, and putting your 2 cents in as to where you get to drive. The idea is that you get to drive the way these questions are. It's not just simple answers to whatever random questions come in. Everyone watching is actually able to to do that themselves. So that's really the opportunity, and we're hoping that you guys will take advantage of it. We have worked hard on our little system, and I don't know if it's something that it's hard for us to manage in the IRC. Are you all ready to go?
I'm ready to
go.
go.
You're all settled in.
Bring it on.
All right, and it's Al, right?
It is. It's Al.
It's not Alex or Alan.
It's Alistair, but only my mother calls me that, Alex. So when I've done something bad.
So and what we're going to do today is we're going to talk a little bit about obviously showing the pipeline, and I think that's really one of the important stories. Now there's we have to, as people are watching this, they have to know that there's a good deal going on right now.
Yeah, I mean that's an obvious thing to start with. So we've basically are offering up until the end of September. 50% discount, which is quite a sizable.
I think that's the biggest.
It's a lot of. It's the
biggest discount I've ever seen Adobe do.
It's not as big as the educational discount, but it's pretty.
Well, yeah, the biggest one to the
No, absolutely. So 50% off Premiere Pro. You probably know that you can buy Premiere and I never know how to pronounce that word, by the way, because I come from England, so it's either Premiere or Premiere.
Right.
But you can buy Premiere Pro in a box, 50% discount, or the Production Premium bundle.
And really, the way to do this is the Production Premium.
I mean, that's what I would recommend because we find that most people who are being creative with video, they're going to want Photoshop. Everyone, we talked about this earlier, everyone wants Photoshop. You get Photoshop, you get Illustrator.
What's the price on the premium?
So the Production Premium retails for $1,700, $1,800. So
now
it's $8,500, $900.
And the thing to think about that, the $800 or $900, is that you had Final Cut and it was $1,200 or whatever, or $1,300. Yeah. You can now buy the new Final Cut and the new Premiere, the new production bundle, all for the same price.
That's
so the same price. Just think of that as one big upgrade.
Loads of new fun tools for less money.
And there's certain ones. I mean, whether you're using Premiere or not, the big thing is that nobody that I know doesn't use Photoshop's part of that pipeline.
Everyone wants Photoshop. After Effects is
After Effects
is a totally common string to most people's bow.
Right. So those two by themselves are worth it. Premiere is obviously, and Premiere's moved a long way. I think that
we have. Yeah.
I think a lot of things that happened. A lot of us started in Premiere. I started in Premiere.
Right.
And then 4.1 came out, and a lot of us, didn't work in Premiere after that. And then Premiere disappeared from the Mac platform. This is MacBreak Studio, so
this is true.
We're talking about Mac users, and now it's back. And I have to say that I've become more impressed with every upgrade. And I think that a lot of Mac users have kind of think of the old days, before and think, well, Premiere, and it's a completely different application. It is completely rewritten from the ground up. It's very powerful, and it has a lot of pieces. And I think that the big thing here is that it is the way it integrates with everything else, and that's what you're going to show us, right?
Yeah, it's certainly in part. No, and just to finish what you were saying, you're absolutely right. We rewrote Premiere, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
For CS5 completely from the ground up rewrite, so it's natively 64-bit. Mm-hmm. I know this is MacBreak Studio, but just so you guys know, it is cross-platform. So Windows 64 are identical as well. So yeah, in CS5 we rebuilt it completely to be a kind of really modern, powerful 64-bit thing. And then we recently launched CS5.5, and that was only a year after CS5. So we're really sort of aggressively updating this. Right. There's new codecs, new editing workflows coming through all the time, and we're really trying to make sure that we're rapidly upgrading this product to fit those sort of changes in the market.
Right. And the thing that I said, like for me, if you're in an After Effects pipeline, if you're in doing a lot of Photoshop stuff, and you want to make sure that you're able to integrate those seamlessly, I don't think that there's any, obviously Adobe owns all the code, and so it does make it a lot simpler to kind of tune all those things together. And because people always ask me like, where should I go or what should I do, and for me, if you're trying to integrate with those pipelines, that's something you have to consider.
Well, this is it, and I think one of the things that we focus on a lot is, yes, absolutely, integration within our own applications. So we want to make sure that Premiere Pro understands a PSD, a Photoshop document, completely, all of the layers. You can bring them in separately, you can treat them as separate elements, animate them, and so on. We want to make sure that we've got the best integration with After Effects, which we do via Dynamic Link, which I'll try and show later. Right. But also one of the focuses that we've had sort of since the late CS4, early CS5, is to ensure that we're a really good workflow citizen as well. So it's integration with other applications external to those which we make ourselves, right? So Premiere since CS5 has had really tight XML integration, so you can export, if you are thinking about moving or if you just want to try it out, you can export a Final Cut 7 project as an XML, bring it into Premiere Pro and carry on working.
Right.
Export back as well. We support AAF from Avid. So we're making sure that there's lots of easily
hooks to get in and
hooks
out.
to get in, hooks to get out, so that you can really sort of, like I say, so that we're a good workflow citizen, so that we sit in this facility and can integrate well.
Right. Very good. So show us what are we going to be working on today?
So this is Premiere Pro CS 5.5. We announced this in April. It's now shipping. It's a pretty major upgrade. We said at NAB that we were absolutely going to focus on making regular timely updates. One of the things I just want to focus on first of all is the very broad native media format support that Premiere Pro has.
Right.
This is a really, really important thing. So I
mean, pretty much everything from H.264 to Red.
That's true. I'm just trying to think of, yes, absolutely.
I mean, that's, it's like,
everything.
not everything, but I mean,
even before, yeah, we like to say from mobile to raw. That's a little kind of catchphrase that we have. So, if you shoot on a crappy cell phone, you can bring it in, cut, no transcode.
Right.
If you've got 4K Red, 5K now, actually, we support the Epic with a plugin from Lab, so we go right up to 5K.
Now, when you say no transcode,
Yeah.
doesn't it still need to render on the way back out again, even if you're just doing some edits?
Yeah, so what you're asking for is a feature that we are very interested in, which is what you might call smart rendering, or the ability to, if you're just doing a cut, why do I have to generate a new piece of media? At the moment, the answer is yes.
Yeah,
but this concept of smart rendering, where you're effectively just stitching something back together, that's something we're interested in.
Because that's for us. I mean, we have a lot of fast turnaround.
Yeah.
And we record an H.264 because that's what we're going to upload to YouTube.
Yeah.
But we have to turn it around as fast as humanly possible.
No, of course.
And our issue is that usually all we have to do is go snip, snip. We don't even need to snip
Yeah.
it back together.
Yeah.
We just need to cut them off. But the problem that we end up with is that goes. When you upload it to YouTube, its rendering engine isn't really smart,
Sure.
and you start losing audio sync, which
Sure.
is so even though you can cut it in QuickTime and export it, and it won't work.
Yeah.
And so we're looking. And by the way, if you're watching, we're looking for an editor that can do that without losing audio sync. But anyway, and we're looking at it.
Okay, good. No, so I mean, you're absolutely right. That's a feature that a lot of people are asking for. The faster, the better. I should point out that it does come with this thing called Media Encoder, which is a really nice encoding application.
And it sucks up every ounce of processor that you have. Which
it's designed to do that.
No, it's great. It's great. I'm just saying,
it's really, really fast encoding.
You open up compressor, and compressor's kind of like, I'll use some of the processors, and I won't use them all the way, and everything else. And you open up Media Encoder, it's like, and the mouse starts to shake.
I mean, there are ways to reduce that, and actually, it is designed to be intelligent, such that if you switch back to Premiere and you're going to carry on cutting, it should release some system resource. But it was designed to be, we know that these days. Encoding is something that people seem to be doing more and more every day, right? You always want to create 20 different formats of whatever it is that you're working on. Exactly, it's the bane of everyone's existence. So the idea is with Media Encoder, 64-bit addresses all the memory, uses all the cores, and just bulldozes its way through the encode.
Is there any do you notice any performance difference between an OS 10 machine or a Windows machine? Is it all pretty?
That's a really good question, and the answer, to be honest, is it's negligible. If you had I think a good way to test it is put Windows on your Mac.
Right.
Because you can,
Yep.
and run the test, because then you've got an identical hardware config. We try really hard to make sure that the sort of net performance over a similar system is close to identical. There's always differences. OS 10's faster at some things and Windows is faster at others, and there's bound to be little differences. But pretty much we try to ensure that the experience is similar.
Awesome. Okay, so we're here.
So I just wanted to show some of the kind of native format stuff. So. First things first, down on the bottom left-hand corner, if you've not seen Premiere Pro before, it's a pretty intuitive interface. You've got your source monitor, your record monitor, or program monitor as well.
And this is all customizable.
Everything's customizable. All these panels can be picked up, moved around, docked elsewhere. You can completely redesign the interface if you want to.
You put it on multiple monitors.
Oh, absolutely. And actually, if you have a specifically second monitor, you can have full screen playback on that as well. So.
Right.
And just so you know, so that we have this workspace menu. I'm just pretty much using the default editing workspace now. But the good thing is, if you do pick up a bunch of panels and move them around and dock them and get really confused, you just have to go Window, Workspace, reset current workspace, and you're back to where you were. So I think sometimes customization can lead to confusion, and it's really easy to reset. So bottom left-hand corner, this is this thing that we call the media browser, and it's worth just pointing this out at the beginning because this is where most projects are likely to start. If I'm going to start,
and this feels very normal if you're like using After Effects or something like that. This looks a lot like what you'd see there.
Well, and there's a reason for that, Alex, which is that it's the same. We make absolutely sure that we share as many of these panels between the apps as we possibly can. But if I was going to go ahead and sort of start bringing some in, we've talked about native format support. You said pretty much everything. So it's really important that the media browser understands the formats. If I'm bringing something in from a P2 card, I don't want to have to kind of double click through this folder hierarchy, contents to find the thing. I just want it to understand it. So an example is I've got if I open my assets folder up here, first of all, notice that there's a red clip. I don't know if the zoom's going to work, so I won't try. There's a red clip. That's just a pure R3D. So I don't have to convert. I'm not using any of the quick times. I've actually already got. You can see it's already in my project panel. This is where all my.
And that's been a big thing for us. I mean, because with Red, we shoot on average probably 5 to 10 hours of Red footage a month.
Sure.
And one of the issues that we get into is that there's like this big render that has to happen after we shoot to get it to conform it to something that is going to work for us. Absolutely.
I mean, didn't we just say encoding is the bane of everyone's life? Yeah. So transcoding, it's a similar problem. So yeah, so to be able to just point to this native clip, like I say, it's already loaded up there, but if it wasn't, I could just double click to load it in. Here's a Canon XF directory. That's obviously a fairly new format, but this is just what we've done here.
Can you see straight into, like, for instance, a BPAV from a Sony EX1?
That's exactly what I'm trying to, yes, precisely. So you would just basically open that directory and see the clip. So here's Canon XF. I don't have an example of XTCam, but if I just double click on Canon XF, what you'll notice is, now we don't have to see thumbnails here, and that's only because Canon doesn't generate them, so we will. But you'll notice this automatically jumps into Canon XF mode, so it sees all the way through that folder structure and just shows me a bunch of clips.
Right.
So it's really nice and easy to import. I can double click on a clip. That's just going to load it up into the source monitor there. And at the moment, all I'm doing is looking at this clip, right? I haven't actually used it. I haven't committed to importing it. If I want to, there's various ways. I can actually just pick a clip up and drag it into my project. That imports it into.
Now, is it ever going to transcode? Does it do it in the background? Does it do it somewhere else?
It's never going to transcode.
It just leaves it the way it is.
All of your media remains native throughout the project.
And this is a religious difference between Final Cut and Premiere, whether people like that or not. We see this almost in Lightroom. We see it in Lightroom versus Aperture, Premiere versus Final Cut. Is that Apple we're going to put it all into a resource. We're going to convert it all to something that we like to work with, and Adobe's kind of like, well, you can have it anywhere and any way you want it. And it's two different. Some people are more comfortable with one or the other.
Absolutely. And what I would like to point out is if you are someone who does want to transcode into a mezzanine format or whatever we're going to call it, feel free. Throw your clips in media encoder.
Will it do it automatically?
So no, Premiere Pro is not going to. Premiere Pro is designed to never transcode a clip that comes in, unless it's something we absolutely don't support. And at the moment, I don't know that there is anything that we don't support natively. I don't want to say there isn't, but I'm fairly sure.
Right.
It's never going to do that automatically. If you wanted to do a transcode process first into something, if you wanted to transcode a ProRes or DVC Pro or something that's like a good mezzanine, you'd use our media encoder application to do that and then import the clip. So we do have that workflow.
Yep.
But like I say, so that's Canon XF native. Let's just have a quick look at this red clip. This is a 3K red clip shot on a Red 1.
And in the same sequence, you're mixing and matching all these things that haven't been transcoded.
And in fact, I did want to show you some sequence setting stuff in a sec. Okay. But obviously the kind of most important thing about working with Red is that it's raw. It's raw sensor data, and you want to be able to access those raw parameters as quickly and easily as possible. So what I'd just like to show you here is if you see this red clip in my project panel, one of our really nice features, if I right-click on a red clip, I can choose this source settings option from my contextual menu. You won't see this for all media, because obviously not all media has these kind of raw settings.
Right.
But anyone who's ever done anything with Red will at some point have used CineX or one of their applications. And what you'll notice in here is you basically have a similar, if not identical, set of controls.
So you really have access to that whole raw plate, because one of the things that people are transcoding it, they're making those decisions in Red CineX or or whatever they're doing it, whatever they're putting that together.
Yeah.
They are then committing to that look to some degree.
Yeah.
And here you're saying, I just open the raw one and start working with it.
Well, the cool thing is, if you do that, if you do some work in CineX or one of the other apps that can do this, basically what that does is it creates a little metadata sidecar file, which they call an RMD, right? So what you'll see in the top right-hand corner of the interface, I don't know how well you can see that, but you'll see you have a save to and reload from RMD button. So if someone's done some first light grading or whatever using CineX and passes the R3Ds to the Premiere editor, that Premiere editor can talk directly to that RMD and have identical color space. And then you can come in here and you can make some changes. And I'm just going to do idiot changes here because, well, that's probably a bit crazy. But what the main point is we're at the latest version of Color Science. You can edit all these things in post. You've got access to pretty much every parameter. You've got your 5-point curve down here and so on and so forth. We can read this from an RMD that's come in from the Red software, or we can build it ourselves. And crucially, again, I talked about being a good workflow citizen, being able to kind of interact with other apps. We can then export the RMD, so if you need to go back to Red, you can. So it's a really sort of reciprocal kind of workflow.
Right.
So this is a really big feature. And one of the things we've got in 5.5 is you can now apply this to multiple clips and so on and so forth. So that's a really sort of nice, powerful way to show what we can do with native media.
Great.
Shall I carry on?
Carry on.
All right. Before we jump out and look at some of the sort of integration with the other apps, I just want to talk about Mercury a little bit. We have this thing inside Premiere Pro which we call the Mercury Playback Engine. This is the kind of fundamental way that we handle the playing back of media.
And this is a big change because this was a problem for After Effects, Premiere. This was one of the big complaints that we had was this is always like, oh, I gotta preview cache everything to be able to watch anything go real time. And this was brought out, and was it in 4 or 5?
This was CS5. So
CS5.
Mercury fundamentally requires 64-bit. To explain Mercury very briefly, think of it as being 3 things. 64-bit, native 64-bit code, that gives you access to the memory, it gives you faster, you can just do more stuff more quickly, to be really simple about it. The second thing is we're very conscious about being optimized for fast CPU. So we talked about the Windows Mac thing, and modern fast CPUs, we're hyper-thread aware. We do an awful lot of work on the CPU to make sure we can get the most performance out of it. The third thing is, and there's often a little bit of confusion about this, I think it's worth just clearing up, is that we are optimized for a certain group of NVIDIA GPUs. So we talked, the guy before me, Dean, spoke about the 4800 in this Mac. We're able to talk to NVIDIA CUDA hardware as well. If you have an NVIDIA CUDA card, 4000, 4800, whatever, what we're able to do is offload a huge amount of the processes that you would normally be taxing the CPU for. And that's things like real-time effects. We talked about multiple different media formats on the same timeline. All these things that we know can chug the CPU and slow it down. We can basically just offload all of that to the GPU and get really, really good performance out of it. So that's what Mercury is. Now, a lot of people kind of think that means that if you don't have a GPU, you're not getting Mercury performance. But what I just want to point out with this sequence is actually we've put some kind of technology in the application to make sure you can still get really good performance even without a GPU. So here's a pretty heavy sequence. You can see it's got a big, ugly, fat red render bar, and that's saying, there's a lot going on here, and I'm not sure I'm going to be able to play it back. We've got 5, 6 streams of video. This clip that you see on the first video track down here, this is actually what we call a nested sequence, what everyone calls a nested sequence, I suppose. And in here, you've got a bunch of stuff going on, but crucially, I just want to show, if we just make sure that we can see let's just move the source over here. Sorry, bear with me 1 second. So what you can see up in here is I've got some real-time effects. I've got an ultra keyer. It's interesting that the program monitor doesn't seem to want to play ball. Let's move that over there. There's weird. There's a bit of a redraw bug. OK, so there you go. So you can see I've got an ultra keyer in here. I can take that in and out. So these are all real-time effects that are using up CPU cycles. So basically, if I was going to try and let's put that green screen back in because that looks a bit stupid. Oh, it's definitely being a bit odd. Let's see if it's going to. Oh, there you go. OK, so that's just a.
And people should know is that the problem here is primarily that this is running into a system. This is not like, so when you see any of these little display things, we're running this into a monitor here, another monitor's over here, and to a mixer in the back. And so we're pressuring this poor little computer a little harder than you would normally have.
And this poor little Adobe employee as well. OK, so point being, complex sequence, loads of real-time effects. If I was going to try and play this back, and again, we're having a couple of little issues here, but let's just try. If I was going to try and play this back at full res, let's just hit play and see if it's going to play ball. I'm asking the CPU to do so much stuff. This is a 1080p, 10 streams, real-time effects. You're asking a huge amount of a system to be able to do that. So one of the nice little small features of Mercury that we maybe don't talk about enough is this thing that we call fractional resolution. So if I'm on a lesser powered machine, I'm on a laptop, I'm on something that doesn't have that NVIDIA graphics card inside it, I can just drop my playback resolution down. Now what this means is when I actually go in to hit play, I'm going to be playing back at a lower res, But what you'll notice is I suddenly get completely smooth playback.
Well, and you get a sense of where it's going to work. It's funny when you say, if I'm working on a little laptop. I mean, you know, when
These little
back in the day when I was working on, you know, a bunch of stuff, that was how we worked. I mean,
Yeah.
you basically worked in quarter res or half res all the time.
Sure.
And then you went to full res, and it's you know, so it is a you know, I think these little whippersnappers need to know that you don't have to push your little CPU all the time. Be efficient. Be efficient. Look at the proxy. You know, set it down. And what's great is you're not re-rendering proxies. You're not doing a lot of the other stuff. You're just simply going.
You're just playing less data back at the same time.
Right.
It just, you know, we have this kind of philosophy, and I'm sure most manufacturers of NLEs do that. The most important thing when you're editing is that if you hit play, it plays.
Right.
That's what you need, right?
Yep.
And if that means you have to drop the res down a little bit, whatever, I think people are okay with that. I think
Absolutely.
that makes sense. So let's have a look at some of the sort of integration pieces. We obviously work very closely with all the other applications in the suite. Here's just an example. What I've got here is a sort of fairly big sequence that we've built up over time. This contains a bunch of media shot on Canon XF. Also contains a bunch of what we call merged clips. You can see all these like little audio tracks down here have the word merged attached. The reason for that is that this audio is being captured on an external device. So this is what you might call a dual system sound workflow, or there's lots of different expressions for it. But what we've done is in CS55 we've got a feature that we call merged clips, which lets you take your source picture from your DSLR or whatever it might be, merge it with the audio from the external recorder, and then treat it like as if it was a single clip.
Is there any auto syncing or anything else of
Not
the?
right now, no.
What?
Not right now.
Okay.
If you need to do auto syncing, we would suggest that you look at Pluralize or technology like that.
Pluralize is and that's
great
a plugin that works in Premiere.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean it's just an external thing, so it builds the clips and throws it in.
Yeah, it's
you know, it's an amazing piece of software, and it's an advanced workflow. I think you'll see NLEs more and more will have that sort of functionality built in over time. But right now we're saying, you know, we can auto sync via time code, but what we're not doing is doing the sort of complex waveform analysis that Pluralize would do.
And I can never say it too much. If you're doing anything with dual audio or multicam or whatever, there is no product that you need more than Pluralize.
It's a great, very advanced, very powerful product, and I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, yeah. So
I mean, you know, for a more basic situation where maybe you only have a few clips, maybe it's a spot or something small, you can build those merged clips. You can use the time code to make the sync.
That's great.
Anyway, the reason I wanted to point that out is what I'm going to do is let's just say, for argument's sake, now this isn't going to be sort of a real world edit, but let's just say for argument's sake, I wanted to apply some kind of effect or something to this particular clip. I could do it to multiple clips. I could shift select, but let's just select one. What I'm going to do is I want to send this clip over to After Effects, right? We've got in Premiere Pro, we've got a lovely library of effects, some of which are CUDA optimized. So I could pick something from in here. I could do a little search in the search window, whatever. But as we all know, After Effects is an incredibly powerful compositing 3D effectsy type thing, as I believe the marketing documentation calls it. So what's the integration look like? Well, all I need to do if I want to move something over to After Effects is I just have to right-click on the timeline and choose Replace With. This then uses this piece of technology that we call dynamic link. Now, I always say to people who are using this software, make sure that you name your projects with something memorable, so we'll call it that. So this is basically going to build me a comp inside After Effects. You can see it's all happened automatically. Some really nice little features here. I haven't had time to talk about our speech-to-text engine that's inside Premiere Pro, but you can see these little words down here inside the comp.
And that is a bedeviling problem, is that you have all this data, and you're trying to figure out where did they say this, and you're scanning through it, and then you miss it, and whatever. And now this is a process that you kind of run and go, this is an overnight process if you have a lot of footage
If you have a lot of footage, it is. But you know what? I'm just going to, because we're talking about it, I'm just going to see if I've got the right clip in to show.
But what it does is it really goes through, and it's not going to be at a professional transcription quality, but it is going to give you a real sense of the keywords and the pieces, and then you can search for these, right?
Well, this is the key thing. So let's just have a look at a clip that's had speech to text already generated. Now, there's two things. You can do a speech-to-text analysis on a piece of audio or a piece of video with audio in it, and you can basically make it guess, right? So that's just going to try to understand what's being said by using the autonomy engine, which is built in. If you do that, like you just said, you're going to get 50–60% accuracy. What we now have is a really nice workflow where you can have a script, you can write a script using our Adobe Story technology, or actually just have a text file. If you have
you could be working in Final Draft or CalText or...
Absolutely, yeah. Right. And then you could either import that into Story or just export it as a TXT. And then when you run the speech-to-text engine, which I've already done here for speed, you can actually say, when you're doing speech-to-text, please refer to this script. And if you do that, if you have something that sort of at least roughly suggests what the actor or speaker was saying, you get things like the ability to do this. Now, this is just going to be, I don't know if you're going to be able to hear this, but if I hit play.
Oh my gosh.
So that's absolutely, you know, beyond frame accurate sync. And I can scrub along and I can make edit decisions. I mean, I can almost paper edit here. So if I want my in point to be where he says the word so, I can highlight it, hit the I key. Notice it sort of, it shows me the graphics. Let's just put an out point on that sentence. And there I've made a selection based only on the spoken word and I can splice that in. Going back to my integration with After Effects tale, which I got slightly sidetracked from.
That's what I do, by the way.
No, it's brilliant. I didn't want to complain.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm a sidetracker too. We'll keep this up. The point being that if you have speech to text already done, you can see that I actually have these words come through into the After Effects comp. And this, again, this really speaks to the integration across the applications. So I can do, I mean, I wouldn't with this clip, but I can do things like keyframing based on the spoken word. So we really have these sort of quite unique integration pieces.
And I'm going to jump back for just a second.
Yeah.
So you could also, for people who are doing documentaries or doing larger things, you could take that that video, send it out to a transcription service to get a full transcription. And then rebind it with the video.
That's absolutely true, and that's what.
If you want to get the absolute, because we do that all the time for a lot of our clients, where we do the shoot and we immediately send them, or within a week or two, send them a transcription of that shoot, and then they sit there and pick out what they want, and I don't have to look for it.
Exactly. So that's one way of doing it. Another thing I'd just like to point out is a slightly different way of looking at it is a lot of people say, well, if I've got this data, can I make closed captions out of it? Right. That's an obvious next step. So the answer is in Premiere Pro, no, we don't do it ourselves, but here's a really nice thing. We work with this company who you no doubt have heard of called CPC, who make Mac Caption, Caption Maker, all that stuff. We can export a Premiere Pro project, send it to CPC. If you have all this speech-to-text metadata in your sequence, it can auto-generate closed captions inside CPC. We can then import that file, lay the closed captions up against the video. So you've got this really nice kind of full workflow if you're working with closed captions. So different ways of dealing with it, but that metadata is certainly a very useful thing to have in place.
It's very, very useful.
Anyway, here's
back
After
to our
Effects.
regular
They're going to start
program.
fading the music up in a minute.
Yes.
Okay, so here's After Effects. So remember what I did. I right-clicked, I sent it over. Dynamic link means I'm not copying media, I'm not moving media. All I'm doing is passing video frames between the two applications. Let's do something really stupid. I'm going to put a sepia effect, and the only reason I'm doing something really stupid is because it will be obvious. I'm going to put a sepia effect on this, right? Bang. Now, I'm not going to hit save, I'm not going to export, none of that stuff. If I jump back to Premiere Pro, if it's going to play nice, let's just jump to the program monitor. What you'll see is automatically that sepia has come in. So this is what I mean by very tight
When you say
integration.
dynamic, it's truly dynamic.
It's 100% dynamic.
And now you're sitting, and if you have a handful of clips that you're working in, you can have them all, you can have Premiere open. You can have your whole edit built out. You can then have all the After Effects projects that are open connected to each one of those files. And then you have this kind of organic way, because what we used to do that was we'd edit in After Effects. You know, because you want to keep them all together, and you don't want to go, back and forth, and a long time ago. But now you could just have it all like laying in there. Yeah,
I mean, you asked Dean, where does the system bottleneck? And I think if you have hundreds and hundreds of really complex After Effects projects playing live in a Premiere Pro timeline, you're going to get to a stage where a render is probably required in order to get performance back. But it's all about the workflow. It's about being able to remain creative, and in that sense. Yeah, absolutely.
And you're not going to use 100. Like, you'll have 4 or 5 of them open at a time because that's what you're going to get through today. Right. That kind of like you have the ones that you might put together.
Absolutely. So that's just an idea. And I mean, I could talk more about integration. We back in the suite now. We have Adobe Audition. This is our. Before I go there, I'll just show you the export. Adobe Audition is our kind of digital audio workstation package.
And this is a big change as well, because this was in CS5. So Audition is an old application, right? So Audition is, I mean, it is a historical application, a very powerful radio editing application that was really used in radio for a long time. Leo, who's the other half of this, uses it. We grew up using it. I used it a fair bit. Then, but Audition for a long time was only on the PC. Right. And we were stuck with Sound Booth, which was a very powerful little application. It was cute.
It was good. It was good at what it did.
To be honest with you, that's what I used for a lot of my voiceover. Like, I used it for exactly what it was designed for, which is that was my primary place that I needed to lay out a bunch of voiceovers, and it was nice and focused and not complicated, and it gave me the tools that I needed.
I mean, we used to talk about Sound Booth as being an audio tool for video professionals. It's just easy access to things things you always want to do: removing clicks and pops, denoising, compressing, simple kind of stuff like that. Audition has all of those tools still inside it, really nice, and I'll show you if we get time, really nice spectral editing, etc. But crucially, Audition is a DAW. It's a digital audio workstation, so it's got a mixer, it's got real-time effects. It's got
and you can record multi-track, you can
Absolutely.
do all of those things built into it.
Absolutely. So, you know, we see more and more, you know, going back to this sequence where we looked at the After Effects integration, this is the sort of sequence where I'm going to need to go and do some audio post, right? It's not just simple camera audio. I've got a bunch of these merged clips here, and I'm going to want to be able to go out to something that's more designed specifically for audio work. So again, just talking about the integration between the apps, if I go to my edit menu, I can choose to edit in Audition, choose a clip or a sequence. I'll choose sequence because that's what's active. And this little dialog box pops up. So this is going to render the video down for something that Audition
so you can preview
handle. Yeah, exactly. I mean, you want to be able to work to video, right? You can render your clip effects past all the volume keyframing. Sorry, I forgot what I was saying for a second there. Past the volume keyframing over. I'm going to hit cancel just so we don't watch a progress bar. But what you'll notice if we jump to Adobe Audition, here's basically the same project with the same merged clips, just sitting in a different application, right? So you can see the preview video down here, you can see the metering, and this is when you can start really going in, doing simple things like let's just drop the volume down of these noisy clips. I mean, we obviously aren't going to want that. That looks just like noise. If you had something you wanted to remove, you can really easily just double-click a clip, go into this editing view here, pull out what you need. You can also go into spectral edit mode, and this is one of Audition's greatest features. You know, if I go into spectral edit, you can see I've got really, really detailed view. So, you know, I don't think it's easy for your guys to hear. But let's say this was a click. This is something where, you know, someone kicked the mic, kicked the boom mic, or kicked the actor or whatever. You know, I can just select across this and hit the delete key, and that then just render. Now, in this example, it's just giving me a gap. But actually, there's various other tools where I'd be able to interpolate between the energy that's around that to fill the gap. So really, really powerful sort of in-depth audio editing tool.
And it's great when you have like a little bit of a ground buzz or some kind of high-pitched or a bird. I mean,
absolutely.
You know, or something that's in the background. Obviously, if it was loud enough to stop you recording, you stopped recording. Yeah. But there was something you didn't notice while you were doing it, so it's not huge, but it's in there, and it's not something that's easy. It's not something that you can just kind of spectrally, you know, gate out. You can't just like, I'm going to push this way or this way. You have to
EQ it out. Exactly. I mean, it's funny. My background is in audio, and I remember, you know, not 7-8 years ago, if you wanted something that could do this, you'd be. We were talking about the kind of consumerization of technology earlier on, but if you wanted something that could do this, you'd be paying 20 grand, right? And now, you know, it's just amazing. Where does, you know.
Yeah. So, by the way, for those of you who are watching, we are with Al Mooney from Adobe, and he is talking to us about the Adobe pipeline, and we're going through a couple different applications. If you've got questions, one of the things that you want to do is go up to our. I've got a couple questions here. We're going to interrupt here for a second, and then we'll
interrupt
come back
away.
To it. And we've got a couple questions here. And if you've got questions, though, go to on the site. You're watching this live stream. You'll see a place where you can ask questions, log in. You can vote questions that you want me to ask up. You can also ask new questions there. So one of the questions that we have here, Premiere scripting. Is there the ability to write enhancements to Premiere functionality, scripting language of any kind?
A very interesting question. The answer currently is no. I am imagining that person probably works with After Effects, because After Effects is a tool that we make, which is hugely, hugely scriptable. Right. We have a lot of people who are developing for us. So I should point out that Premiere Pro's got really good SDKs, APIs, if you want to.
Right. So if you want to get serious and write it, you can write a plugin.
You can download that stuff, absolutely. But scriptability is something that we are interested in, but right now the answer to that question is no.
Okay. And also, can I get the Master Collection for 50% off?
No, it's just. Oh, I knew someone asked that. No, it's just Production Premium and Premiere Pro.
Okay, there you go. And also Premiere backwards compatibility. I'm currently running CS4 on After Effects and Photoshop. Where's the backwards compatibility cutoff? I'm assuming with dynamic linking.
Depends what you mean by backwards compatibility. Are you talking about old projects that can be opened in newer versions, or the other way around?
Yeah, I think it's probably old. Like, I'm going to guess that's what Vince is asking.
We can open projects from before it was even Premiere Pro. So we're really good at that. Going backwards, you know, if you, I think
once you start taking advantage of the new hooks,
exactly. All software manufacturers have that problem. So 5.5 back to 5, less so. But if you're going upwards, CS4, absolutely, the project will just open natively.
Right. Perfect. And let me see, make sure I'm not missing anything here. Those were the questions. So if you have other questions for us, go in and share your questions. Vote questions up, vote them down. Let us know what you think. Is there anything else you have to show here? I think we've got.
I think we've covered an awful lot. I can always show more, but no, I just wanted to show the kind of, it's all about the integration between those apps, and just like I say, the integration externally as well with that, all those different hooks in and out. We really want people to realise that these applications can just sit nicely in an existing workflow. You don't have to cut in Premiere Pro if you don't want to. Just use it as the hub. Bring your projects in and move them around like you've seen here.
And with this half off, it seems like such a great deal. This is the time if you aren't sure.
Yeah.
There are so many applications inside the production bundle.
Precisely.
That you're gonna need.
Yeah.
That if you haven't upgraded to 5.5, if you're is there some kind of upgrade, or is it just half off?
There's a fantastically inexpensive upgrade. I think 5 to 6. No, I'm not going to quote a number because I'll get it wrong. But CS5,
but it's good.
And then fired. CS5 to 5.5 is very cheap. The other thing I'd really like to just point out quickly is we're doing there's a 30-day trial on the site of anything you like, all of our applications. But previously in CS5 and before, the 30-day trial of Premiere Pro was a little bit, it was a lot limited. If you didn't mind only cutting in DV, it was fine, but it was a bit limited in that sense because of codec licensing. The 5.5 trial is totally fully functional, so you can download that and just edit away, try bringing your Final Cut projects in, that kind of stuff. And we also now with 5.5, sorry to sound like a sales guy, but we have subscription pricing as well. So if you don't want to fork out this big lump of money to buy the application, Premiere Pro, as an example, is $59 a month. So you can start.
And you don't have to do 12 months or 6 months or whatever. So you can say, I've got a project coming in and I want to use Premiere for the next 2 months.
Yeah. Well, you can download the trial. If on day 31 you still haven't made your mind up, it's going to cost you $59 to try it for another 30 days. So it's we're trying to make it really easy for people to get on that first rung and experience what we've got to offer.
Well, that's really useful for little production companies like mine, which is that we get into the situation where we have a job coming in. That is, and this happens to us all the time. We've got 4 licenses or 8 licenses of software, and now I have a job that requires 20 people.
Yeah.
And I don't want to. It's going to suck up all of my margin or more. I'll be paying for it and hoping that I get another job that big again to rationalize it. And now I can just rent an extra 10 for that month of After Effects, or an extra 10 of Premiere.
Yeah, or the suites. So there's lots of different options there.
Fantastic. Al Mooney, thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have me. We'll have you back.
Lovely. I'd love to come back.
You're local.
It was you
don't sound local.
No, I'm not that. No, I'm a confused. I'd always say I'm a confused Englishman in California trying to find the pub.
There's a lot of those.
Yeah, there are.
Yeah. So
I found them.
So yeah.
No, but I live in San Jose, so always happy to come up.
And we have one more question here before I let you go. Again, this is the same person that asked about was Premiere upper. Where do you see it choking? Lots of data. Same.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think if you. Now with 64-bit, the answer, you have to do an awful lot to make it slow down.
Right.
If you have loads of linked After Effects projects, you might get some grief. And if you're cutting tens of thousands of clips of 5K, then you might start feeling some problems. But now with 64-bit, we used to have some performance issues back in CS4, but most of them have gone away now. We're a really good, fast, well-performing entity.
Fantastic. We'll have you back showing us some more projects.
I shall look forward to it.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much indeed.
All right. And now we're going to switch. Al's going to. He is going to close up his stuff, and we have Mark Spencer coming up next. And Mark is going to show us a little bit of Final Cut X. We're going to be talking about filters and publishing and what? Motion. We're not talking about Final Cut. We're going to talk about them together. We're going to talk about motion and Final Cut. I thought I knew what he was talking about, and then he's over there giving me hand signals, and I don't know. So so anyway, if you have more questions, the thing to do right now is to go up. You'll see it here, but it's pixelcore.com, or it's pixelcore.force.com/pixelcore. We're working on the URL, and there's a couple bugs. We had it finished like 2 hours ago. So anyway, we're still working on a couple of those things, but that's the place to go to ask questions. And if you're right next, if you're watching the stream, if you see me right here, it's let me think about this. It's right over here. Is that right? It's like right over there. Am I pointing the right way, Carolyn? I'm pretty sure I am. What?
Your mic is muted.
Am I in the right hand right now? Am I looking the right way? My watch hand, like this. Okay, pointing the other direction. Is that right? Anyway, I'll learn how to do this. I can't see the interface, so I don't know which way I'm in. Okay, so anyway, so what you want to do is you want to go up. It's on either side here. There's a link that you can link to ask questions. And so if you've got questions about any of this stuff, now Mark and I are going to kind of open it up for questions about any of this stuff at the very end after Mark shows a couple pieces. And so if you've got questions about Smoke, about Premiere, about Final Cut, about any of those things, life in general. No, keep the life questions out. That's a whole other podcast. But if you've got any of those questions, make sure to post them into the question area and vote them up and down. There's been a lot of posts, but not a lot of voting. So get your vote in. You gotta participate. We're pushing you a little bit. So anyway, we're here with Mark Spencer again. Hey. And we had a great response on our first little discussion.
It was good, yeah. I don't know, people must have some time on their hands because that was a long discussion.
That was really long. I forgot that YouTube had given us the extension.
Yeah, it wasn't like the 10-minute thing.
Yeah, it was like
more and more.
Throw this on there, yeah. So anyway, we're glad it worked out. So and we're now talking about Final Cut and Motion.
Final Cut and Motion, yeah. What I thought I'd talk a little bit about, and probably because Steve couldn't be here. He's off on the East Coast right now doing some Final Cut training. But I thought I'd show a few tips about how you can use Motion just to enhance your Final Cut workflow. Right. So you don't need to know any Motion for this at all. Mm-hmm. Like all you did is you downloaded it because it was there. But there's a few things you can do to make Final Cut do things a little better by going into Motion for about 30 seconds.
Well, let's see
things. So I just brought up a couple little examples here. So here I've got a very simple project with 2 little clips. I'll play it because the audio is going to be important here.
I try to tell true, authentic stories. We've done events like this in front of thousands and thousands of people.
Okay, so 2 simple clips. Here's the thing. When you add a transition in Final Cut Pro 10, by default, I'll just select the edit point there, and I'll hit Command-T to add a transition. First of all, did you see what happened?
It made it shorter.
Shorter, yeah. So before I do anything, I'm going to undo that. I'm going to go to Preferences. This is what I really recommend in general you do right away.
Right.
Is go to Preferences, go to the Editing pane here, and change how Apply Transitions Using happens. Instead of Full Overlap, you want to select Available Media, which will act kind of like you're used to if you come from Legacy Final Cut Pro. It's not going to go ahead and move the clips in order to create the media. If they've got enough handles, it'll work.
Right.
So with that said, now if we select that transition, Command-T, it should work normally, but if we play it.
Authentic stories. We've done events like this.
All right, did you hear that?
It's
kind of fast.
It's kind of fast, yeah.
But the transition, this was a video transition. It was just Command-T. It was just a fade.
But it's fading the audio and the video. It faded the
audio and the video.
And that's
not necessarily what you want to have happen, right? It's just a little bit like, what is going on with that? So what I'm going to do,
it might work some of the time, but not often.
But fix to that is really easy. All you need to do is I'm going to select these. I'm going to hit Control-S. And what Control-S does, I'll undo it there. If you go under the clip menu, we have expand audio and video.
Right.
Okay. So that just
gives you independent control.
It doesn't detach them.
Right.
But it allows you to handle them independently. So now if I hit Command-T, I get that just there.
Exactly what you're looking for.
So and that's usually what you want, right?
Right.
If you did want to apply it to the audio, so the next question is, okay, great, I can do that. But what if I just want to transition on the audio?
Right.
I want audio, and I'm looking around. I don't see an audio cross dissolve anywhere. How do I do it? One thing you do, if you just want to do a J cut or an L cut, you can just, trim these audio tracks, and they'll automatically get out of the way because of the magnetic timeline.
Right.
And you can overlap them. And then once you do that, you can go in here. And one thing you might want to do is use a little switch down here to make these audio tracks quite a bit larger. And then I'm going to zoom in a little bit just so I can see what I'm doing here. Right. You can manually fade in the audio right here. Every audio track can be faded right away.
Right.
Okay. But there is another way to do this.
Which is a lot faster than it used to be.
Right.
It used to be like you go up and you go into the audio section.
And add a keyframe, and drop down, and now that's quite a bit easier. But there's another way to do this. It's really kind of cool. So what I'm going to get rid of that guy and select these guys and Control-S, so we're back to where we started. And I'm going to use Motion to do this, okay? So I don't think we've launched Motion, so let me just do that right now. The thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to create a transition in Motion. But the transition isn't going to do anything to the video whatsoever. All right, all it's going to do is handle the audio.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, okay, because the transition affects the video and audio. If it's a transition that actually doesn't do anything to the video, it will affect the audio.
Right.
And credit to this, it's a little hard to assign credit because there's so many tips coming out right now. They're kind of flying around everywhere. But this one, there's a guy named Alex4D, and you know, if that's you, I don't know your last name, but Alex4D, if you Google on that, will find he's done a few tips and given a few things away. And a lot of people are now providing these things because you can use Motion to create all kind of cool stuff for Final Cut 10.
And that's the if you're using Final Cut 10, and it's Final Cut 10.
Right, not Final Cut X.
No, I get so confused.
Nobody knew in the beginning, right?
Right, so it's Final Cut 10.
Yeah.
If you're using Final Cut 10 and you've already spent $300 on it, you have to have Motion. It is this great little toolkit for $50. If you are not interested in Final Cut 10 and you just want to, you still have to get Motion because it's $50 and it's this great little graphics app.
It is by itself.
It is the best graphics deal out there at the moment. You know, I think
you can edit in it. I mean, you can edit and cut together a short spot.
Right.
And do color correction, do keying, and titles, and you know, in a $50.
It's super powerful.
And if you're using Final Cut, this is just one example of little thing you can do. So I'm in Motion. Again, you don't really know anything about Motion, but when you launch Motion, it says what kind of thing do you want to create? Because now Motion create 5 different kind of projects. So we're going to do this one called a transition. And I'm just going to make it sort of the biggest thing that I can. I'm not doing 2K or 4K, but I'm just going to make a nice big 1920 1080 project. And I'm really not going to do anything to it besides that. I'm just going to open it up, let it do its thing here, and save it just the way it is. So here's my project in Motion. Let's make the screen a little bigger so we don't see Final Cut. So there's my transition. If I play it, by default, what it's going to be is just a straight cut.
Right.
Okay? So normally what we do, instead of just going from your outgoing clip to your incoming clip, you would have something cover them or animate them out or create a transition. Anything you wanted to do would then work in Final Cut. But I don't care about that. I'm going to hit Command S to save. And I'm going to call this audio cross, for audio cross dissolve. And it needs a category. So I'll just call it, you know, my tricks. I can't see very well. That's right up here. There. If you can't see and you can't type, then you're in trouble here.
I can't.
Now, I don't need any unused media. I don't need to preview movies, so I'm just going to hit Publish. And you notice when I hit Command S to save, it automatically assumes I want to publish it because I'm opening one of these Final Cut effects.
Right.
So that's all I did. I opened it, I saved it. I didn't do anything else. So I'm going to go back to Final Cut now. And if I go to my transitions browser, this is right down here along the bottom right.
And you hit save, but but it's into a resource that Final Cut is dynamically looking at.
Dynamic looking. I didn't quit Final Cut. I didn't do anything. I'm just selecting the transitions browser, and there is my category, my tricks. There is my new cross dissolve, and if I drag that guy here, or I could double click it, I will immediately get a cross dissolve just on the audio, and it's not affecting. Let me hit Control S just to open it up. And it's not affecting the video. Okay, so I actually opened the whole.
So it's doing the whole effect because you have control over the audio and the video in Motion.
Right.
You're essentially in a situation where you've now created that custom effect, and that's the great thing about Motion being the effects generator for Final Cut. Is that if you think of something that you want to do that you can't get your fingers on, now you have basically it's like an effects editor. That I can build a new effect. I can customize whatever I want.
Anything you want.
Right, and we have it. By the way, we have a. I mean, I'm just going to say we have a beta, a free beta of if people want to play with Conduit.
Conduit, yes.
So if you want to, Conduit is like the big engine that sits inside of Motion that you can still do these open-ended nodal composites.
Whole nodal compositing, right? You know, kind of like a mini shake right inside of Motion.
And what you can do is you can inside of that you can build a whole plugin. And then you can publish it to Final Cut with just the things that you need to grab a hold of when you're there. And so it's a very powerful, that combined with all the other stuff with Motion. And that's what makes us so excited about it, is there's just so much power that Motion, even without that, but there's so much power that Motion really provides that of customizing your workflow.
And it turns, everybody can be a developer. Right. You don't need to know any coding, how to use Quartz Composer, or some other different application. If you know how to use Motion, you can develop effects for Final Cut.
Yeah.
I mean that's just like that.
And they really are pretty much on par. I mean, you're making your own you can decide what the sliders' values are and what the reality is, if you ever wanted to if you ever wanted to hard code that or push it even further, it's the best way to set it to develop it, because you could show it to someone and a programmer could go, oh, I know exactly what I need to do that. Yeah.
But it's, I mean, a lot of people don't even realize that every single one of these browsers down here, so we've got what you might used to call filters, all these effects that are down here. These are all motion projects.
Well, and that's the other thing, is that if you like something, this is the cool thing that I just think people are missing in this crazy back and forth about Final Cut and everything else, is that
controversy
is the crazy power that this is kind of the sleeper in the whole system, is that. So I see an effect, and it almost does exactly what I want. I go, oh, this is great, but I just wish it did a little more of whatever. Open it up in motion. Yeah. Go in there, change it, add another slider, move it around, publish it again, and now you have
got what you want. Right. In fact, let's take a quick look at that, because there's another really good example. I'm going to go to these themes over here at the bottom right, and themes are sort of collections of different effects. You can have transitions and titles and what have you, but they all have a common look and feel. So I'll select this one called Cinema, for example, and I've got a transition, and I've got some different titles. Now, all of these, and one thing, you might look at the thumbnails and like, well, I don't really like that, but if you open it up, there's often a lot more you can do with it. So I'm going to select this guy down here, and I'm just going to hit E to do an append edit, to stick it at the end of the project. And then I've got this title, this animated title. I'll just kind of scrub through it. That comes down here and reveals video if it were over a video, which I didn't do that here. But if I select it, generally most of these will have some controls in the inspector. And if the inspector wasn't open, you just click this little I, or Command 4 will open that up. And in this case, with the inspector, rather than having those shapes be circles, I could change them
And these were
to
things
squares.
that were created, these shapes were imported and set up, so you can make them anything you want.
Yeah, this was all built in motion and what's called rigged in motion. So you can change these shapes, and you can change the color. And this one has these 4 different color themes. So for instance, if I chose gold, there's a different color of gold being applied to every little element in here. It's not just sort of one overall color. Or there's gray, or there's green here. Let me back out just so we can see it. Now that's fine, but you might say, I like this, but I want a red one.
Right.
How can I get a red one? Well, super easy. And it's another thing where you really don't need to know how to use motion, and I'll just point you where to do it. So we're going to right click on that guy right in the browser there and choose Open Copy in Motion. And let's see if I got it there. There we go. I think did I get it or not? Go over to Motion and see. Yeah, there it goes. So there it is in motion. And at the very top.
And I said, again, what's great about this is you look at these, and you are able to also learn a lot. Like you see a graphic element that you're really interested in, you can learn a lot about how motion is doing all of this stuff by simply, you just have this open-ended.
Just dig into it.
Right.
And some developers have been like, well, wait a minute, how am I going to make and sell an effect when everybody can just open it up and figure out what I did? Because there's no sort of way to sort of hide all the magic. Right. It's just there. So when anything you create, anybody can kind of break it down. But to me, that's great that you are empowered to look at this stuff and make your own
and a lot of people claim that Final Cut is, and there's a lot of things that aren't there right now that will probably come back in. But the other thing is there's this other side of it that it's the ultimate tinkerer. Because of the integration. If you only have Final Cut and you haven't gotten motion because I've never used it before, you have to have it. I mean, I know that they split them up, but they really could have almost kept them together, because you're gonna need compressor, and you're gonna need you're gonna need motion to really take full advantage.
And this is another example where you don't need to I don't want to learn another application. Don't worry about it. Just go in here. Look, I've got this thing called a rig. Oh, color. Well, color's what I want to change here. Okay. There's a thing called an inspector. I'll go inspect what that's about. And then down here, I see a pop-up menu. And these are the different states, right? So if I choose blue, it's got, you can see once you choose blue, all these different.
This is a rig.
Yeah, this is a rig. So these are all the different layers in the project that have the colors change depending on what you select up here. So if I go to gold, for example, we've got all these kind of gold colors of the different shapes that are in there in the background and everything. I'll go to green, and you can see those change again. Well, what I can do here is click this little plus button, and make my own. Okay? And all I need to do, I don't know where these layers are. I don't know what a layer or a group is. I don't know. And this is a 3D project. I don't care. So I'm calling this red. And all I need to do, I'm going to go wide again. So I'll just start with the background. And I'll give the background kind of a deep red color.
Right.
And then maybe a little deeper red than that. And then you can copy these real quick. You don't need to make them perfect. I'm just going to drag one color swatch onto another and make all those another red color. And then this green here, maybe I'll make more of an orange. You can see it's affecting. You can see what's affecting. You kind of sometimes you have to scrub through to see what's changing, as you go through here.
Right.
But I can really quickly change and create a whole different color theme.
And right there, you're just dragging from
I'm
one
just
to
dragging
the other.
one color swatch to the next.
Right.
And then up top, there's the hue of that. I just clicked off of it there for a second. There we go. The hue of that lens flare is kind of orange. I can make kind of purple or a little more blended a little bit better there. So I can just take advantage that this thing's already been rigged. I don't need to build a rig and create a different look. Now let me just go back to
And you could go in
here
here and you could change the shapes and you can change
anything.
all those things.
I'm just showing you the fast thing because usually what I think people will find is, oh, I want another color theme.
Right.
And they don't need to dig into, if you want to,
Or I
you
want
can
to take
take
those
as far
shapes
as you
and
want.
replace them with my company's logo. Or
Yes,
I want to, that
absolutely.
type of thing.
So I'm just going to save it, and I'll switch back to Final Cut. And now it won't update the one in the timeline,
Right.
okay, in your project. That's one kind of key thing to understand. When you do this, what's going to happen? Let's go back to our themes here and select Cinema. I'll bring it up a little closer again. If we scroll down, because this was an existing one that shipped with Final Cut Pro 10, it creates a copy, okay? So I'm going to drag that copy. I could have saved it with a different name. So I'm going to drag that copy over here and choose Replace. And now I'll move my mouse over it just so we can see it. I'll select it. And back up in the inspector, once it updates here.
And we're, again, one of the things to know is that we're pushing this little machine.
We're pushing a little hard, yeah.
It's three applications that all hit it pretty hard, and they all have their own custom resource management. Not so much as Premiere, but Smoke and Final Cut have their own little
requirements.
So we may be, what we've learned in this process is that we're going to need to start having 3 machines.
Right.
And then we're going to let, and then we'll just be able to switch.
Okay, between them.
Switch between each one so that we don't have to go from one to the other, because a lot of these, especially in the graphics machines, it becomes more of an issue. So
the other thing I noticed,
one question while we're getting this
set
up is how much investment of time is needed to learn Final Cut X or Final Cut 10/Motion? Is it a big change? Is it a?
I think the learning curve has gone down dramatically. I think that was part of the purpose for the design, because this is a brand new application, right? And
so if you're going from the old Final Cut to the new Final Cut, there might be a lot of rethinking.
In some ways,
going from nothing to the new
exactly.
Final Cut.
In some ways, going from Final Cut 6 or 7 to Final Cut Pro 10 is more difficult.
Right.
It's kind of like going from, if you know After Effects and also want to learn motion, you've got a certain way of thinking and it takes adjusting. But if you don't already have that background, it can be quite a bit faster to get to speed. So how much time it takes, I think you can sit down with it and sit down with some training.
From Ripple Training.
Ripple Training would be a good place to check that out.
Ripple Training is, by the way, it's not very expensive. It's a great way to do it. And if you want an in-depth training, I have to say it. If you want in-depth training, of course, we have a training coming up.
Yes, we're doing a training in August.
Mid-August, but you can
mid-August.
You can, but we're that's definitely a place to go to figure that out.
Right. And Steve is Steve Martin is a Apple certified master trainer and has been training since 1999. So he knows this stuff inside out. And I was just in a training he did for trainers, kind of a train the trainer thing a couple days ago in Cupertino. And it's great because I learned a bunch of other stuff, little tricks and stuff that I did not realize. And everybody there was like, oh, it can do that.
Right.
I had no idea.
Right.
So it's very helpful to sort of sit down and work with.
But if you go up
somebody
to, by the
really
way, the
knows.
easiest way to find that is to go to eventbrite.com and do a search for Pixel Core or do a search for Final Cut 10, and there's a bunch of trainings that are coming up.
Okay.
This one is we're going to have a lot of fun with this.
Yeah, there's a little barbecue involved, right?
Everybody have a barbecue. We're doing my place. So we're going to I want to. There's this thing about training that I want to play with and really make it, because I think that there is like, why should I come somewhere rather than just do it online or do whatever? And so we kind of want to have some fun with it. So I'm going to be doing some little half-hour, hour talks about green screen, about other little bits of things. At
Little
the end of each
conduit
day.
stuff in
Little
there.
conduit stuff. Some, how to set up a green screen if you're shooting, thinking about live production, because we have a lot of live production stuff laying around. And so we're going to have a bunch of those add-ons during the class at the end of the day, and then also we're going to have some barbecues and at my place. So we can, the idea is if you're here, we can all kind of get together and kind of have a social piece of this puzzle as well.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun.
really good.
So anyway, so we just had to talk about that for a second. But so we got it up. Here's our.
Well, I just want to see here now we've got our, we're in the inspector, and we've got our option for our red is there now.
Yep.
Okay, so, and if I just select that, we now have our, garish red theme. If I'd spent a little more time sort of picking good themes, it would look a little better.
But the point is you went and developed that. Now,
and in a few seconds, without really understanding the details of motion, just go there and change those tabs. And you can do that, by the way, with any, you go to these themes, with anything in here. I keep closing it again. And there's a ton of these things.
Right.
And all of these, well, I should say 95% of everything in all these browsers are motion projects.
Because with these with the new transitions, with all these filters, the big thing is that you never want yours to look exactly like everybody else's. And now you have the ultimate resource to be able to pull those out and customize them to your project, to your client, to your company, whatever that is, in a way that I don't think we've never had before. No. Other than building them all from scratch.
Yeah, and there's no reason not to modify and customize and take something that's started and take it a little bit further. So it's pretty exciting stuff, I think.
And one of the questions we had from online, is there any scripting available, like actual scripting?
In Motion?
Final Cut?
No, not like, because you think After Effects and expressions. There's nothing like that. But I liken expressions to behaviors in Motion because behaviors are procedural animations, or animations based on scripts that you can't go in and type them directly, but you can modify those.
Right.
And you can also link different parameters together, which is a similar kind of thing where you can have the scale of something affect the position of something else.
And that's all something that's pretty organic. It's not something you're not typing code in.
No, you're just saying link this to this and make this drive that thing.
Right, and you can set up the relationship between those, like times 2.
Right, exactly. There's a scale, basically a scale slider. So you can say, and you can have audio drive animation. So you can throw an audio track and have
the volume
things to jump. Have just the bass drive the scale of something to jump, and the high frequencies drive something else. So it's, like this just lets you touch motion, and then when you get in there, you might be like, oh, cool. It just goes really deeper and deeper and deeper. It's kind of like going down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Carolyn, you said you had some comments or questions? So one of the things from the IRC is someone said that you're so good that we were asking for questions about motion, but they're like, just as I'm ready to ask that question, Mark answers it.
All right, I'll be quiet for a while.
No, that's very good. So so if you have any other questions, whether it's Final Cut 10, we're getting pretty close to the end of the day here, but if you have questions about Final Cut 10 or Final Cut or Smoke or anything that we've seen, the three of us, we watched. Today we had Autodesk with Smoke, which is super powerful.
Yeah, that was amazing. That whole nose thing was fantastic.
It's a silly one, but it's just.
But it shows you how powerful the trackers are and how fast with somebody who knows how to use it.
Yeah, and that's been the thing. So by the way, if you have any questions, we're going to discuss a little bit about what we saw, and then we'll cut it off. But we're going through a 3-day training with Autodesk right now, and with Smoke, and it's just amazing. It's like at first, it's like compositing on the moon. I mean, it's just
I've looked at interface on a bunch of demos and a bunch of trade shows, and I'm just like, you need some little hand holding to get started there.
But the thing is that when you start getting used to it and you start getting into this modal interface where you're, okay, I'm in this now, and I'm in this because what happens is it's this whole world, and then I have to admit that you start looking at a lot of the other interfaces and you go, oh, this is really cluttered.
Like as soon as you decide to go somewhere, it wraps that part of the world that you need around you.
Yeah, I'm in that room. Yeah. I'm in the color correction room. I'm in the keying room. And the modular keyer, or the modular, is amazing. Yeah. And so there's there's just a lot of pieces that, and every time I think that, oh, this is really impressive, this must be the high point of Smoke, and then we get to another section, and I'm like, okay, this is pretty cool too. And like just being able to just kind of select all those points and just say, okay, I just want you to
and just scale to do that per vertex adjustment of the feathering,
like,
inside and outside.
And scale them all up real quickly,
at one time.
and set them all up, and then go, and it's just, like, it's awesome.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that it's a, so Smoke is amazing. And by the way, if you haven't downloaded it, I mean, it's 30 days for free, and you do need to make sure you got a fast drive. You got to make sure that you have a network connection. There's little things like that, but it's a great, it's a lot of fun. And we're going to be working on a bunch of tutorials, as we move on. And one of the things you're going to see for a lot of people that they haven't, they've mostly seen MacBreak Studio be a Final Cut showcase. And one of the things that we're going to be opening up as we move forward is we weren't able to get all the details worked out with Avid. We haven't left them out. They just weren't able to make it tonight. But probably in the next month or two, we're going to have Avid come in and show Media Composer and some of their other tools. We're going to start making sure that these are heterogeneous, coverage of if you're. The idea was always when we said MacBreak Studio was it was your studio.
Everything on the Mac.
Everything, but it's on the Mac is the thing that is the central piece of it, but not necessarily just Final Cut Studio. So we're kind of using this as an opportunity to kind of expand out.
Great.
Yeah. So let's see here. We have one more question. How many seats are available for next month's session? And do we recommend any accommodations nearby? There's still probably, I think there's like 10 seats left in it, so it's not sold out yet. Yeah. But usually it picks up right near the end, and so don't wait too long. We have, by the way, we bought a new projector for all of you, which we're very excited about.
Yeah, sweet. We were looking at it back there, watching you guys.
It's super sharp and bright, and we painted the walls with a shiny paint, and we're kind of tweaking all those little systems. Around here, there's basically 3 hotels that I usually suggest. The most cost-effective is Best Western. The cutest and closest is the Metro, which is this little.
Is it like right downtown Petaluma?
It's actually not that far from my house, and then I walk by it all the time. And it's cute. It's a cute little one. And then probably like if you want most of the creature comforts that you would have at a 4-star, whatever, the Sheraton is also on the water, and it's very nice. And so those are the 3 that when people ask me to suggest ones, we're still doing research on that, but those are the 3 that usually that we ask. So again, we have another question. People are asking, where can I go to see this over again once recorded? Very soon, within the next couple of days, we're going to have this uploaded on YouTube. And I'll tweet it. So if you're not following me on Twitter, it's Alex Lindsay, and also follow PixelCore. So PixelCore will tweet it. I will tweet it. If you subscribe to me, the thing I have to warn you about is that I tweet about all kinds of silly things, and
Yes, you do.
Yeah. so if you don't like that, then don't follow me. Don't complain about it. I got my Quitter.
But not too much though. It's not like you're doing dozens a day or anything.
No, but I'll tweet about stupid things. And so I got are you in Quitter?
Quitter?
Yes.
No.
You can sign up for this thing called Quitter, and it used to send me them every day. What it would do is it would say, these people stopped following you, and this was the tweet after they stopped.
This is what killed them, right?
This was the last straw. And it was always so funny because you get it and you go, really? Like that was the last straw? It was always an innocuous one that they just decided I can't follow them. Now they don't do that unless I pay for it. I'm not going to pay for it right now. So I get them like every 6 months, but it's overwhelming now because you get it every 6 months and it goes, 454 people are no longer following you, and I'm like,
it means you lost 0.5% or something.
Well, it's like it means I lost. I do admit that I think I lose almost as many as I gain. So anyway, so it's it's this very slow crawl forward. And I don't really care. See, my whole thing is about that is that's the people who like to listen to me do whatever I'm going to do. And so I'm Alex Lindsay. You're Mark Spence. Or Mark Spen.
Mark Spen.
Mark Spen.
Yeah.
And so follow Mark, and he'll repost it as well. And then also follow PixelCore. So if you're interested in the live feeds, hopefully you guys enjoyed this. I'm having a lot of fun with it.
And Ripple Training.
And
at Ripple Training.
You go to and at Ripple Training is another one you want to follow because then that's Steve.
Right.
And so follow at Ripple Training, at Mark Spen, at PixelCore, at Alex Lindsay at your risk. But we'll post when we have more live feeds. We'll also post when this goes up to YouTube, which will be, as I said, in the next day or two. All we have to do is cut the ends off and compress it and put it up, and so that shouldn't take too long. We got 2 more questions here. Now that you've played with it for a while, what is your opinion of what really needs to be added that is missing without getting into real debate? But what do you think really?
Everything
they took out.
Everything took out, right? Everything that people are asking for. I mean, multicam, import, export.
Yeah.
You know, I'm having a little trouble getting used to the color board. It's a different model.
Yeah.
And it just, again, I came from Final Cut 7, so it's a real adjustment. I think there's amazing stuff in there, and I really think this is where things are going. So I'm into it. I think it's great.
And it's still, I'd say it's not totally solid yet. So I've been like dipping my finger into it. So I got to admit, big project comes through, I'm still going back to Final Cut 7.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm not pushing. We just had a bunch of big edits that we just had to finish, and it's not like I'm just dumping everything into Final Cut 10.
Well, how often do you? I mean,
Never.
Did you upgrade to Lion yesterday?
No.
Or today? Was it today?
I updated it. I updated it to Lion in October.
Okay. Well.
No. I'm saying in coming.
Oh,
October.
in coming. Okay.
It's another 2 months before.
Okay.
We're gonna
Exactly.
My little laptop. This little guy here. This guy is gonna get updated tomorrow. A couple other little computers are gonna get updated, but I'm not gonna put any of my production computers into Lion for another month or 2 while they sort out all the little things that they're gonna have to.
Yeah. There's just little, like, you can't open the library folder anymore unless you do a command to get into it. Right. And like for Motion, I do that. Or for Final Cut, I do that. So there's you just want to see it, and the same with Final Cut Pro 10. To hang out, see what comes.
Right.
Apple's been public about certain things that are definitely coming.
Well, so they've already talked about multicam is going to come back. They've, and as I said, there's some stability issues, with it. I did my first little edit where I had to just trim some stuff down, and then I hit render, and it just came out black. So there's like little little things like that. So this isn't, you don't have to get too stressed about it. This is a transitional period. But the one thing I noticed while I was doing that trim was I knew that was a bug. Like that's just what it is. It's a new application. It's put out. It's a whole new thing. But what I do have to say is I was popping through the edits, and I was like, okay, this is really fast. I'm just like slamming through this stuff, to make the corrections that I need to make.
Once you start working with it, just the speed of dropping things in and adjusting is kind of shocking.
And I think that on really fast turns, reporters in the field who don't need all the multicam, don't need all those things, I could see this as like a perfect little application, and eventually be able to do a lot of those things. Have you been able to get? Have you been able to get saving a project or event to your external hard drive to work? It won't let me. This is from Sean.
Yes, I have.
Corny.
You can either save it from within Final Cut Pro 10, or you can move those projects manually in the Finder. Either way will work. I've done them both. They both work. You need to be careful. The external drive has to be an HFS Plus formatted drive.
Okay, so that might be the problem.
And it can't be a time machine drive.
No machine should be a time machine.
Yeah. If it's a time machine drive, if you're running Time Machine on it, it kind of thinks like, hey, you probably don't want to be putting your projects on the Time Machine drive.
Right.
So it's not going to like that.
Right.
So in case that's what it is, that may be what's going on.
HFS, make sure it's HFS Plus, make sure it's not Time Machine.
Yeah.
Those are the 2 big things, okay. Just a comment from Tex Whitney, bought the new training, Ripple training, and it's a nice job, enjoys it.
That's probably Steve, so kudos to Steve. I'll pass that along.
And I think we've answered all the questions. Carolyn, is there anything else looping around? Okay, great. So anyway, make sure you can comment at all those things that Mark Spen, Alex, Lindsay, Pixelcore, Ripple Training, but especially Alex, Lindsay, Pixelcore about this show, the format. Whether you like it or not, whether you like our new little feedback loop that we've created. One thing I will say about it is it's a lot easier it's a lot less hectic for me.
Yeah.
I'm able to kind of see stuff that's going up. I would like everyone to vote a little bit more. We spent a lot of trouble making that work. But the outside of that, I think that this I think is working. I think that we need to figure out how to get the video in there with the voting. So people can do all
side by side kind of
side by side or something. I got to figure that out. We haven't figured that out yet. We also, the IRC is still there. But if you like the format, if you like the video format, the background is a little blacker than it was before. was.
Oh, it wasn't black
so
before.
Here's the inside.
It looked pretty black to me.
Here's the inside baseball stuff. Is that we really, you know, someone commented. They said Charlie Rose called and he wants his set back. You know, like after you got the wooden table, you got the big black set. Now here's the problem: is that you know, I'm a huge Charlie Rose fan. I mean, so I'm not gonna tell you that I didn't do this on purpose.
Yeah,
you know?
you said we're doing the Charlie Rose format.
Except for geeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the Charlie Rose format for geeks, and I love that format. We probably will change the table. This was the table that we had available. We're going to play with that. But I like the idea that we're not worried about a set. We're not thinking about it. It's about the people who are talking. It's about those things, and it's not about those other things. But what we're going to probably do is build a custom table. This monitor thing, I don't know if it's totally working. So what I'm looking at doing is doing stuff like integrating a monitor into a table. Like we'll probably build a custom table that has the monitor into it, and it's really set up for us.
Yeah, because right now we're kind of like, I can't quite see.
Yeah, everyone is. It's like, and the monitors are big enough, but if we make it too big, then the cameras can't, see over it, and there's a lot. So all of the stuff is going to keep on getting. We didn't unleash the jib.
Right.
Or
this is the second show, right? And this
is the second Final Cut. We've been doing them every week, almost every week. Last week.
But in the second live.
They've all been live. So every Thursday.
Okay.
Every Thursday we're
I didn't even know that. Okay.
Every Thursday we're doing something live. So it was MacBreak Studio. Next week is going to be This Week in Photography. So we're talking about cameras. After that is Gear Media Techs. We're mostly just talking about the production stuff. And then after that it's Inside the Black Box, where we're talking about visual effects stuff. I think we're gonna and so we're doing live streams every Thursday, and they're all different subjects. So at 6 o'clock on Thursdays, you can kind of check things out if you're interested. So anything else, Carolyn? I can't talk about that on the air. Sorry, I got something from Carolyn. One of you asked a question on the question thing that I'm not answering, and you'll know who you are, but I can't answer. You were asking about using Pixel Core for certain things, and I can't talk about that. So, but anyway, the Pixel Core is a cool thing. It's a cool place to be. That's all I gotta say. Anyway, so I think that's it. So we're gonna let you all go. We're gonna let you go back. I think we're gonna go have a beer. I know I need a beer.
I want to say, can I say good night to my son?
You can say
if he's
goodnight
watching,
to your son.
Elliot, if you're watching, good night. Go to sleep and be good with your mom. We're going on vacation tomorrow morning. It's very exciting. We got to get up at crack of dawn and.
Oh, we can't keep you out too late then.
Yeah, I got to go pack. Yeah, my wife's sitting there packing all by herself.
She's like, I can't believe he's out here. What is he doing here? And you're like, but really, I'm not late. Do I smell beer? Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, so anyway, thank you all for tuning in, and we had a lot of fun, and we'll see you here. We'll have you back in a month, and I don't even know who we're gonna have. We're gonna try to get Avid on here in the next month to talk about stuff. We'll always have a segment that we're talking about Final Cut in Motion, because we're gonna constantly see this progress, and people are learning it. So you can always expect that. But then we're gonna be talking about other things in your studio. So we'll be talking about. I know we're trying to bring in Avid to show Media Composer,
right?
And then we're going to look for one or two other people to. Shows up. I might show a couple things one of these days. So anyway, that's it.
Good.
All right. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye. I don't have a good log off yet. Yeah, that's always the rule.
So yeah, when he's thank you for watching.
You always have to know
MacBreak
how you're going
Studio.
to get in and how you're going to get out. I don't know how to get out of this one, but otherwise, just saying thanks for tuning in.